streaming. Right, check Chuffy12. Back once again with the Renegade Master. Hi, you're with Scott. I'm Ganji Kid. It's midnight. It's always midnight. This is your right ear and your left ear. This is in mono, so I'm back for a second time today. We just tried to do words on stream. It didn't work. The whole thing fucking collapsed. Didn't get any upload speed. Did my upload speed test. Do you know what? It made me cross. It made me feel bad. It made me feel bad. Getting loads of download speed like you always get, because everyone does downloading. Oh, everyone does downloading. But upload speed, it was choked. Now all of it, like, in the intervening time between last stream and now, which has been about 20 minutes, I've got, I'll show you. See this? Look at this. I mean, what a fucking joke that is. That was a spool of wire. It was like in a coil. And that can plug straight in at the wall for the... You know, I can plug that in at the wall. Plug it into the unit. Straight into the computer. This is not plugged in right now. Because I unwound the spool and it did that. I was like, why have they fucking wound it up like this? Instead of one end at one end and one end at the other, both ends at the same place. And as you pull it, the whole thing just collapses into a big mess. Not happy. Not happy with that. It's a great big mess. Plugged it in at the box. Come over here to plug it in and I look at the thing and it's fucking running. Green kilobytes. So the only time my upload went wrong, the only time I had problems on the internet was during the actual stream that we just ran. And words on stream didn't work. And I'm displeased, very frustrated. So I thought what I'd do is I come straight back at you with Truth or Homeschool. This is my favourite homeschooler. This is Shelley, and I'm in a fucking right mood now, so she's going to get it. But she deserves it, look. She's one of these chuffing... Like, where'd you start with her? Where'd you start with her? Her YouTube channel is making videos about homeschool. So that's homeschool, you get that concept. She's taken her kids out of school. She's in America, so I'm not able to judge all of American schooling, but she's taken her kids out of the American school system, whatever it is, and instead is teaching them everything at home, everything. And you might say, well, that sounds like some sort of abuse. You might say that sounds like some sort of, you know, you might say it sounds like an abuse of like a child abuse. But you know, when you then factor in the idea, like if you're a really good homeschooler, it might not be a child abuse. Maybe that's just me, you know, saying what you might say, and we might all be wrong. But when you factor in the idea that this is also a channel all about question the narrative, mud floods, Tartaria, the kingdom of hell, melted buildings, trees, titans, or melted buildings, check out some of our Tartaria videos because you'll see some of this stuff on there. And like, it's a load of rubbish saying that Jesus came back from the dead and the world isn't the world you know it, and you know, it's all conspiracy theory, question the narrative. You know, star forts are sucking power out the atmosphere, flat earth, all of it is on here. So Jesus Christ, her latest video on being a truth or homeschool mom, which is actually the crux of it for me. So let's get into it. These are adverts for horrible things. I don't want animal flesh. I'm vegan. Why would you want to advertise that sick, horrible shit to me? Here we go then.
And you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I wanted to give you some thoughts on being a truth or homeschool mom.
Hello, King Snurgle Gurgleson. Loads of people homeschooled in the USA. The public schools can be really bad over there. Fair play. You know, I'll say I accept to that. Come to bankrupt me with words on stream. No words. The charity's not getting their money this week. We'll put £10 on the kitty. It didn't work. It might have been words that crashed us. It might have been words that crashed us. Something fucking crashed us. It's all working fine again now. And my backup plan is this. So you can imagine my delight when already angered, not angered, but upset, disappointed, frustrated, that's the word. I feel like we're making progress, we're building, we're getting more people watching the streams. It's a big week this week of Genshin Impact stuff. Like, it's happening big in the game. I'm going to be playing it later. And all that, you know, like every time I make steps forward. This happened to us last time, didn't it, when we did Jade? Do you remember we did Jade? And her body language for Martin Leaker when they had their troubles. Not for him, but like, you know, her body language in response to him, because we were looking at the Martin Leaker saga. the ever ongoing Martin Leaker saga. Like, here are my videos. Look, is she lying? The dark side of Martin Leaker. Jade accuses Martin Leaker body language, and Martin Leaker's falling down. What happened was I did Martin Leaker's falling down, or I did one other one. Martin Leaker at a party. Have you seen Martin Leaker? I did a couple of these Martin Leaker videos, and they started to get a few views, and I thought, oh hello, like you do on YouTube. Oh hello, I'll have to do another one of them in a couple of weeks. You know, I don't do it all the time. Look, Genshin Impact, other stuff, variety, but I'll have to pop into that. I have to dip my toe in that topic again, and I keep dipping my toe in there, and we get a few views. So when it came to the body language of Jade getting a few views, I thought, oh hello, getting a few views here. Shit, this is an important one. I want to make this a good stream. And then the stream was choppy. Virgin Media did apologise and said they would resolve it in 2 to 3 days. So I had to wait 2 to 3 days to get it resolved. Meanwhile, people were seeing our stream for the very first time. More numbers than I'd ever had before. This is how it works on YouTube. You upload for a year, nothing really takes off. You do a whole variety of stuff, nothing really takes off. I've been streaming on Twitch for a year and uploading to YouTube. And when I started streaming on YouTube, I realised that YouTube shared our streams a lot more. It didn't like me streaming on Twitch and uploading it. It likes us to stream on YouTube. No wonder, it's YouTube. It wants to promote its own stuff. So when I did that, I got a few more views, and I thought, oh good. Now it's time to capitalise on that and, you know, do my very best, show everyone a good quality stream, make a good quality product. You know, I'm not like, you know, some super producer, am I? But like, make a good quality stream so that they can enjoy it, so that you enjoy it, and that way, you know, you'll come back. And it wasn't my fault. And it's not my fault, but Virgin Media fucked me. At the moment, like, the graph was going up, and you just drop off a cliff. I have to accept it. After that, look, 100 views, 1,000 views, 100 views. Because who's going to come back to the choppy stream that doesn't work? Not me. Not me. If you go in a restaurant and your food's all burned and horrible, oh, sorry, sir, the oven wasn't working well today. It's not our fault, but British Gas will come and fix it next week. Please come back next week and we'll have a great time. No, I'll just go next door where it's good. Thanks. Leave me alone. I don't care about your oven. I'm here for the food. Like, do you see what I'm saying? It's not, and I don't blame anyone for not wanting to watch a stream that's choppy. So it really hurt me. It hurt me. Do you know what I mean? It's like hard to bear because you work hard and you feel like you're pushing forward and then something sets you back. It's that simple. That's life, isn't it? Stay positive. Words on stream. I'm not going to let it get me down, except just to say I'm feeling like this now because it's happened again now, hasn't it? Today feels like a big day for me. Words on stream, big kitty, going on to a big Genshin Impact stream later. Worked hard all week to upload loads of videos, and it is hard work because you have to look through them, tag them, put the chapters in, do the little thumbnails, and you know, I've been sat at that computer. On top of that, I've been editing for Ganji Cuts, which has also been taken off. Been editing for that. So, you know, I've been doing hard work, laying the groundwork for a good, enjoyable couple of streams, and now I'm a moody choffer. Now I'm fed up. And do you know what the irony is here? Do you know what the super irony is? I'll field all of your chat in just a second. The super irony is this isn't even plugged in. I got all this out. It was a coil of wire. I pulled the one end. It collapsed into this shit. It was all neatly coiled. The way they've coiled it guarantees it tangles when you untangle it. It's not in a, like, you can't unravel it like that. It's both ends at the same end. You pull it and it's like, poosh. It's not even fucking plugged in. It's working now. The internet's working now. All that I had to do was get really cross, upset, wound up, run around the house going, oh my god, I can't believe it, oh my fucking god, getting all this wire out, plugging it in and running around. But when I come back in this room and looked at the kilobytes, it's green. It's green. Fuck. So I'm going to give it all to our truth, a homeschooler. I'm going to give all that energy to this. I'm going to just calm down and chill out and relax and enjoy my time with you, and we're going to talk about a subject that I've wanted to get on for a little while. She's done another video. It's the crux of the argument. We'll look at it. Thank you very much for being here. Jade disappeared off the face of the interwebs. So probably Spider trapped the guy she's landed on through calling Mike the Devil. It might be that, or maybe that guy's gone mental and like locked her in a cupboard. You don't know. Like, he might feel really aggrieved that he's been shown to be a fool on the internet. Like, or maybe they don't think they were shown to be a fool on the internet. I don't know. I think what she probably has done, I'll just quickly cover this because I think it is interesting. Like, when Martin Leake, what's Jade's, like, they've got these stupid names for their, Martin Leake's is alright because at least it's unique, but Jade's is like a real, it's like the truth of the past or something, isn't it? Future of the past. Like, what a stupid future of the past. Look, what will come up? Oh, fucking loads of other stuff. Not her stuff, but just loads of random stuff, because future of the past is like the most, her channel does come up quite top here actually, because maybe no one's stupid enough to use it as a name for their channel. And then she's gone for the 3 different fonts in the one thing there, mistake. And yeah, she stopped uploading, hasn't she? Future of the past is now, like, it's just the present, isn't it? So it's a silly collection of words, and it's a collection of words that's never going to be unique because it's just so obvious and cliched. So it's just like shows the thinking of the girl. But she's done her videos. I don't know how they're still doing. Maybe I can get this on Social Blade. I think it was a big blag for her. You know, I think it was a big blag. So I think when she's been proven to be a big blagger, like, the blag is up and she's probably given it up. What do I want here? I just want entry username from user. Let's try it. Let's just try it. Might work. No search results on Social Blade. Do you know what I mean? So, oh, there we go. Found it. C+. It's probably doing better than me because it's monetized. At least I'm not. £1 a month. So no, I've got a ASMR channel that I do not really, I don't really, what's the word? Maintain. You know, I'm not on there every week uploading. I do it once every few months, check back in, have a little blast. I've got an ASMR channel that does me, about £1 a month. Yeah, I never monetized it during its heyday, only recently, but so you can see that she's not making a lot off this. It's not lucrative. Would you want to keep doing the work for £1 a month? You know, she thought it might become lucrative at some point, but it didn't, did it? It hasn't. Monthly gain video views. It's dropped, look, since July of 21. It dropped. It started off, or was that when she started? I don't know. Anyway, it's totally dropped, hasn't it? Look, she's just petering along. In May, she got a few views, and that was when it was like Martin Leake stuff was kicking off, wasn't it? So, you know, it's just absolutely nothing for her, is it? It's not financially viable. It's not a passion for her. It's about money, and because it's not bringing in money, she's tried it for a year. She's give up. That's what I think. And so because of that, I think that's why the tour was so important, wasn't it? Because this isn't doing the money. Not like they said it would, the YouTube videos, it's not doing the money. So maybe the tour's the thing, make the money off the tour, because it was all about that van, wasn't it? So she got her initial views through Martin's recommendations, so there you go, yeah. There you go. Oh, hello, Drinkwater. Yeah, we had a problem with the words on stream. It broke my internet and it made me upset and I nearly cried. So, like, honestly, I nearly cried earlier just then. Like, inside I felt like, I've said it a number of times, I'm putting in the hard work. And like the other day, Anthony Joshua boxing match, I didn't go and watch it with all my friends. I watched it quickly at home on the internet and then got back on with editing. And I don't wake up early in the morning like everyone else does, but I stay late at night and work hard. And like, yeah, anyway. So anyway, yeah, the Jade thing, I covered all that anyway. And it is interesting, isn't it, that she's totally fucking packed it in. And she took down the video, the accusation video, and I think that she realised that the accusation video actually hurt her more than it helped her. And a lot of people would have commented on that video, oh, I didn't know about this until you said it. Oh, I'm not even aware that Martin had done this or that until you said it. I didn't realise until you said it, and I had to look into this drama, and I don't like drama. I'm here for the stone circles or something. So thanks, Jade, but no thanks. You know, I think it actually hurt her more than it helped her. So she made a few big mistakes there. I mean, the whole thing was a big mistake, wasn't it? The whole thing was a big mistake. So I think she's probably off onto the next blag, yeah. You know, I think she's onto the next blag. I can't imagine she's working hard on a well-produced documentary behind the scenes or anything. If she were, then she'd be shouting about it on this and trying to draw in some finance, wouldn't she? It'd be interesting. I'd love to have her on the show. I'd pay her to talk to me on this channel if she's listening ever. She can be on the show. She can be a guest. I pay my guests, so there's an incentive for her. But she would have to put up with my line of questioning. A bit like this other chuffer. Talking of that, let's find out this as well. I'd like to find out her social blade, because I bet she makes fucking bank on this. There's no place like home. There certainly isn't when your mom's into conspiracy theories and homeschooling. B-. She gets $280 a month. No wonder she's fucking churning out this shit. I mean, she doesn't. That's 17 to 280. So it could be anywhere. It's probably more like $50 a month, depending on what your videos do, how you do. But look, there's her earnings. There's her estimated. The estimated. Actually, I know from Social Blade they overestimate my earnings by massive amounts. So maybe she's not making that much, but it's still it's a chip into the kitty, isn't it? It's more money than I make. She's monetized. And every month, it's been really consistently shit until May 21, where she got a big peak. That'll be the Tartaria stuff kicking off, won't it, I think? It's not guaranteed for her, though, is it? It's not guaranteed. It's up and down. Here, she must have... Look, you see this point here, this big dip. See how the line goes normal, big dip, and then up. She's had to delete a video there, or YouTube's deleted a video for her, and it got quite a few views, so when it was deleted, it looks like a big drop. That's not... This month she lost, it's minus 250k. So at some point she's talked some shit and had to delete some videos. Jade had a mother and a sister who's in York. Where they both live, who's homeless, yeah. She talked so much shit. She talked so much shit, didn't she? YouTube was like a gold rush psyop. It populated the empty place with illusion. Maybe that, maybe a bit of that. I mean, I remember the early days of YouTube were just people making fun videos and not really understanding the concept, and it's all changed over the years. I don't know. Let's look at this lady, because this is what I promised now. We've got to get an episode out, and this is going to be one of my favourite episodes ever, so let's actually look at her, see what she's got to say for herself. I haven't actually watched this yet.
My dear Asgardians.
I'm looking forward to watching it. This is why I've come back strong. When life gives you lemons, then you fucking say, fucking have these lemons back, you fucking chuffer. I'm eating apples today, and come back strong. So here we are.
I'm Shelly, and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I wanted
that music
to
in
give
the
you
background.
some thoughts on being a truth.
That music's my calm, relaxing music. I like to put background music on for our streams because I think they help us. But she hasn't, so I'll just give her the benefit of listening to her raw.
Their homeschool mom.
Oh, the time is coming when everything that is covered up will be revealed and all that is secret will be made known to all. Question the narrative. That's a new one. Who's that quote from? Is that the Bible, or the time is coming when everything that is covered up will be revealed? It's funny language. I think it must be the Bible, mustn't it? The time is coming when everything that is covered up will be... I mean, what a strange thing to say. What a strange... It's Luke. It's in the Bible, and all that is secret will be known to all. So, Luke in the Bible. That's what she's quoting there. I won't even start on the Bible. It's from Revelations. It's from Luke, it says. It's from Luke 12:2. I mean, it's out of context, isn't it? It's just one bit of it. So, what does it mean and what's going on? I don't know, because I haven't looked at, this... reject all and exit. Luke 12:2. So... In the meantime, a crowd of many thousands had gathered, so they were trampling one another. Jesus began to speak first to his disciples. There's no point in taking one line and saying, this means this out of the Bible, because it's all stories, isn't it? It's like you take the Good Samaritan, let me just take a quick, out of context line out of the Bible and make it mean nothing. The Good Samaritan. That's a Bible thing, isn't it, the Good Samaritan? The parable of the Good Samaritan. That's in Luke, isn't it? That's in Luke. That's Amazon Music. Can they fuck off? Let's actually just have the... here we are. So if I just take any bit of this, right? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. Well, it doesn't mean anything unless you know the rest of the story. Why is the expert in law talking? Mercy on who? Go and do likewise in what way? In what way are you doing likewise? You have to get the whole context of the story. That's the whole point. So taking any one line out of the Bible and just quoting it like that, rubbish. Full rubbish. Just rubbish. You might as well take a line out of Winnie the Pooh and quote it. It doesn't have any context. So you need context. In this, the meantime, a crowd of many thousands had gathered so that, I'm going to put my relaxing music on, so that we were trampling one another. Jesus began to speak first to his disciples. Beware of the leavened Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. The Pharisees were like, they're like Jewish, religious, like they write the rules, I think, don't they, in like religious rule. Members of the party that believed in resurrection and following legal traditions that were ascribed not to the Bible but to the traditions of the fathers. Like scribes, they were also well-known legal experts. So they're like legal Jewish social movement and school of thought in Levant. So we're talking about society and the way things are being ruled and run, and he's saying that the Pharisees are hypocrites. There's nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, nothing hidden that will not be made. He's like, the Pharisees are going to get shown to be hypocrites. Trust me on that. So he's talking about specific things, Jesus is. He's not talking in general. He's not talking about today. He's not talking about, oh, there's a conspiracy theory about Michael Jackson's fucking monkey wasn't really a monkey and it turned out to be a Chinese spy. No. So you can't just put that up there and say, question the narrative. Luke wasn't reflecting on how we can question the narrative. Luke was reflecting on what you've spoken in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you've whispered in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the housetops. Luke was reflecting on how Jesus changed the society and how his movement, what became Christianity, and the things they were following, the disciples were literally following, was a social change. So Luke's commenting on a social change about 2,000 years ago. He's not commenting on anything today. He wouldn't have had any idea about what was going on today. He wouldn't have pretended to. He didn't say this is going to be relevant in 2,000 years, so mark my words, this is coming back round. This is fucking ridiculously out of context. Glad we figured that out. What confuses me is someone who's into this shit would use it on their channel, because it's obvious. Like, once you've, like, it's like saying, right, I fucking love the Bible. And like doing this on your channel with your little smiley face is like saying, I fucking love the Bible and I'm using it as proof as everything. So there we go. So from day one dot, from 12 seconds in, you know I'm a fucking idiot. You know, I've just lost, you know, gone way off. Even the people that run this religion aren't into that. Even the Pope is not saying you should read this one line and then get all funny ideas. You're losing your marbles. You're making connections where there's no connections. You're getting your wires crossed. You're getting all your wires crossed. You don't think it's out of context, says drink water, but they're talking about the Pharisees. He's talking about the Pharisees. Jesus was specifically speaking to his disciples about the Pharisees. So when we learn about Luke and what was going on in Jesus' time, we can learn about social context, and it's great, interesting stories. It teaches about history, social context. It teaches about how to behave and why we should and maybe shouldn't behave in different ways. You learn about what the Pharisees were doing, and then you can then make opinions based on it. If you don't know what the Pharisees are and you're not relating it to the Pharisees and you're relating it to what's going on today, that's not fair, because Luke wasn't doing that. You're doing that. That's not fair. It's been translated and retranslated. You're not even reading the ancient Aramaic, so you don't even know if that's what it said in the first place. That's ridiculous. You can't say it's not out of context. That's literally out of context. It's the most out of context thing you can ever get, is to take words, like take one line and put it somewhere else and make it seem like it's saying something else. Now the kilobytes are dropping, which is actually a good test. If the kilobytes do drop, I'm going to see it as a positive, as a good test, and I'm going to get my wire plugged in, and we'll see if that works. Eddie Murphy was cross about Michael Jackson's monkey. They're dangerous anyway. Sorry, I'm not keeping up on all the chat, but it is there on the screen, so everyone can talk about it in conversation, in comments as well afterwards. I just know that Michael Jackson, he had truffles in his kitchen and bubbles in his bath. He had bubbles in his bath. Ah, it's funny, isn't it? Michael Jackson had bubbles in his bath. No, he wasn't a pedo. Or whatever that means. Look, where's she gone? I've lost her. There she is. Oh, she's got her own music now.
I realized
what was that?
I've taken...
What was that?
I realized that...
It's a bit sinister, isn't it? It's a bit sinister. It's almost like a threat. Isn't it? It's almost like a threat, a bit sinister. What's going on? Usually she does her hair nice. Usually she does her hair like set and blow dried for the episode. It's all a bit frizzy today. It's alright, I'm a hairdresser. I look at these things. I'm not commenting on someone's appearance. Although, you know, it's fair game.
Them together in my life, because on one hand, I am a Christian.
Pharisees are not ancient. They're also here in modern times. We just don't call them Pharisees. Fair enough. Why did he call them fucking Pharisees then? If he was talking about modern times, he'd have called them whatever they call them in modern times. If you want to write a new book today and refer to it, if you want to write a new book, go for it. But if you want to refer to a book that was written over 2,000 years ago by somebody who we can't really verify who wrote it, like you can't actually verify Luke wrote that at all, even ever. Maybe some Jewish person said that Luke wrote it and they got away with saying it, and then it's got slipped in under the radar. We can't verify it, but we trust the Jewish people at the time that followed Jesus, the Christians, gathered scrolls together and they said, these are the Bible scrolls, these are the ones we want to go on. And that happened like ages ago, and it was all funny language that you can't understand, so you've got no chance. But like, you have to trust the people of today. And you know, you're talking about conspiracy theories, you're talking about Zoroastrians and people like that, which isn't, Zoroastrian's like an ancient Aramaic religion from Persia and Iran, isn't it, that predates Christianity and Judaism. So you know, I get that, but like, wouldn't they be concerned with the construction of the Bible? Wouldn't they be into that? If they thought this Bible was going to be, you know, giving people ideas, as it obviously is, wouldn't they be fucking writing the fucking thing? So I don't know if you should trust that. Probably trust me, Nephilim, the bad Nephilim that can't exist. The Nephilim, the product of the fucking Nephilim, the product of, in Enoch, he reckoned that, get this, Enoch reckoned that angels came down from heaven, had sex with people, and that their children were like this giant race of Nephilim, and that happened, right? Enoch reckoned that. Enoch was so off his fucking whack that they took him out of the Bible. They said, I ain't having this. It's fucking loads of rubbish. The more time went on, the more rubbish it seemed, the more it didn't tie up with anything else in the Bible. So I'm not digging at you here, anyone in particular. I'm just saying, I saw the word Nephilim, I'm shouting my mouth off. I'm in the mood. Enoch said other stuff as well, you see. He didn't just say about the Nephilim, which is a fantastic idea, that, oh, that's an idea, oh, what about this? Interesting ideas. He also said, and if you read the book of Enoch, Sun, Portals, in the book of Enoch, and if you read it, it's very difficult reading, because Enoch's got certain ideas about where the sun goes at night, and he hasn't got the right ideas. He doesn't know. But back then, it didn't matter, because he could say whatever you fucking want. Angels come down from heaven, had sex with people and created giants. They believe it all. He's a great prophet. Nowadays, you have to write it all off. If part of this passage is absolutely categorically wrong, you might want to write it all off. Let's see what he's saying. When the sun rises in the heaven, he comes from through that fourth portal 30 mornings in succession, and sets accurately in the fourth portal in the west of heaven. And during this period, the day becomes longer and the nightly shorter to the 30th morning. So he's noticed that days and nights get longer and shorter, and he's explaining it by saying that the earth rises and sets through different portals, and that when it goes into those portals, it goes into some other dimension, assuming, because it goes through portals, and it returns on the fifth portal of the east 30 mornings. And so he thinks for 30 mornings it goes through one portal, and then it moves and the days change and it goes through a different portal, and then it goes through a different, and he's wrong. It doesn't do that. The days become longer and shorter progressively over time as the earth and the sun change in their solar relationship, but it doesn't go down portals, and it doesn't change overnight. Tomorrow is longer days. So he's categorically wrong about all of this, and it fucking goes on. And it goes on. He's noticed that 365 days is wrong. So he's worked out a system where you can add in a leap year day, but he's made it up himself and it doesn't make sense. And it fucking goes on. And it fucking goes on. This is about portals that create drought, and portals that are joined from the south create drought. There's no portals creating drought, and it fucking goes on. So the problem with Enoch is that if you don't read it all and you just take one little bit, you might go, ooh, Nephilim, oh, they sound interesting. But it's just like the rest of it. You've got to understand the whole context, and when you do, you can write it off.
Homeschool mom, and on the
Hello,
other hand,
homeschool mom.
I am a truther.
Oh, God.
So a lot of people will ask me, how do you reconcile the two? Or better yet, how do you balance homeschooling your children when you know that most of what we have been taught is a lie?
My question is not how do you balance homeschooling your children when you know what you've most been taught is a lie. My question is how do you balance teaching your children and not causing them some sort of child abuse through teaching them a whole load of fucking weird nonsense? Like, get her to exactly, Rudy. That's what's going on in my mind. Oh, also, I would say, drink water, don't worry, and Rudy, don't worry. Between you, you might not see eye to eye on some of this shit, yeah? Probably won't. Like, drink water, please don't, like, you know, get cross with people, and Rudy, please, again, like, just let it slide off you know, water off a duck's back, because we're here in chat to talk ideas maybe sometimes, absolutely fine, but arguing with each other, you will never see eye to eye on everything, and then you'll just have a row on a chat window, and typing and getting heated doesn't help anyone. And you know, do it through me. Get angry at me if you want, but don't get angry at each other in chat ever, please, because you know, it's a never-ending thing that will just make you feel hot and angry. And like, this is the point: is you're not going to convince each. I doubt Shelley's going to watch my video and change her mind, and I doubt that if you said to someone in chat, and I don't know if you are arguing or not, whatever, but if you know, oh, I'm going to tell you this in chat and that's going to change your mind. It's not, is it? It's not. And you're not going to read something in chat and someone's going to say, oh yeah, you fucking idiot, this and this, and you're going to read that and go, oh, I'll change my mind. So mostly arguments don't change minds. Mostly arguments just make people cross, and you're the person in it, so you might start feeling hot and angry. And now I've lost my lighter, and I need my lighter because I need to fucking calm down. And I'm an idiot, so you know, these are the breaks. Well, I'm not that bad an idiot. I mean, I was coerced into smoking when I was young, but this is a different kind of idiocy.
And, you know, today I'm hoping to maybe clarify how we do things here. It might not be how everyone does things.
It fucking won't be, will it? With a picture of the flat earth behind you.
I don't know. I'm hoping that it will help, because I've realized that I never thought that I would say this about myself, but I'm a bit of a skeptic. I am very skeptical.
No.
About...
No. I think that's unfair. She's using the words the debunker. She's using the words like, you know, hang on, a person inclined to question or doubt accepted opinions, an ancient or modern philosopher who denies the possibility of knowledge or even rational belief in some sphere. Well, the philosopher, you will leave that alone because we're talking about common language usage, so I'm not going to beat anyone up with a philosophical definition, but a person inclined to question or doubt accepted opinions, you're a skeptic, but you believe everything it says in the fucking Bible. That's not skepticism, is it? That's believing the opinions that have been fed to you all your fucking life. Then socially, a skeptic would say, hang on, question the narrative. Is there anything behind this conspiracy Tartaria shit? Is there anyone making money off it? A skeptic would look into who's making money off these things and, you know, people's motivations. A skeptic wouldn't believe all this shit. I see skeptic as a positive word. Inclined to question or doubt accepted opinions. I'm a skeptic. I'm skeptical of your skepticism, if anything.
Everything that is presented to us in the mainstream, because especially now in this day,
King Snowgirlson, we should do an episode on Freemasonry, because I'm still not really that educated about it, and I still wonder whether it's just a sort of, you know, club for discounts between business people. But the things you've seen, I won't say you haven't seen. So and I do also agree that, like, you know, in the top brass rooms there's a lot of horrid shit going on, but I think it really runs along the lines of how can we fuck over the normal people and steal their tax money. Less likely that Jesus actually came back from heaven and fought a battle with the devil and then they changed history.
An age when we can see it pretty blatantly happening right in front of us, although a lot of people still don't notice it. We're lied to.
We're lied to a lot. Yes, we are lied to a lot. You're lying to your children if you teach them all this shit. But it is a commonplace standard practice in our capitalist society to be lied to. We have to have rules about it. Otherwise, advertising companies would do it just so barefacedly that, like, I can't even start. Where do you want me to start? Coca-Cola's not got cocaine in it. Well, it did used to. Cigarettes don't kill you. Well, they do now. Sugar doesn't rot your teeth. It does rot your teeth. Tyson Fury's got mental health problems and is a good person and wasn't trying to make money for a drug mafia. Like, where do you want to start with lies and deceits? It's called marketing. Yeah.
But and a lot of it is social engineering. They want us to act a certain way. They want us to believe certain things.
Now, I don't know about that. That's social engineering, because that's what religion was used for. Like, that's why Karl Marx decided to abandon religion in socialist countries, because it was socially engineering the populace in a way that he didn't like. So religion is a form of social engineering. It has been accepted. Who's they that want us to do these things? Who is the they? Who is the they? And what are they socially engineering me to do? Because I don't feel like they're succeeding with me. I mean, who is the they?
So that we will act those certain ways.
And what ways? It's just like, I think she gets confused. I think a lot of people do, because there's a lot of what you might perceive as social engineering, but it's accidental in ways, and it's also deliberate in ways where they want you to buy shit. Like, it's conform, obey, consume. Shut up, get a job, go and work at that job, and shut up, and then use that money to go and spend it on the stuff. And then we'll make fucking loads of money, and I'll eat truffles, and I'll grope women and rape them, and truffles. It's that sort of thing, isn't it? Like, I don't know. I'm really, I've got certain views, strong ethical views on certain things, but I also think that it's hard to say. Like, I mean, when you're talking about, like, if we're going to get anywhere near saying like COVID was social engineering, Boris Johnson wanted to let COVID rip. He wanted to do the opposite of the plan that went into action. So, like, she's confused about how, like, she's not even being socially engineered in the way she thinks she is, I doubt. But I think the irony is she's been socially engineered in ways she doesn't realise. I mean, for Christ's sake, she's dyeing her hair and, wearing the makeup. That's part of social engineering, isn't it? Like, conform, obey, consume. Make sure you look a certain way. Make sure you aspire to our capitalist standards of beauty. There's a start. I mean, where do you want to start? It's so deep. But yeah, okay, well, I don't know what to say about that. She's been very vague, and she has to be, because otherwise she gets banned off YouTube for saying certain things. But I wonder what she tells her children.
And more of us are starting to wake up, and more of us are homeschooling our...
You know what makes me angry about this? More and more of us are starting to wake up. Is that pre-Twin Towers, we had a movement that was awake. Like, pre-Twin Towers, we had zeitgeist... The zeitgeist movement. It was a film. It was 2008. So, like, there's this, like, it's been going on. Like, she's going to come to me who, like, protest and, she's going to the fucking supermarket, shoveling the shit into her mouth, and now she's telling me, oh, we're waking up. You're not. The thing is that you're being even more confused. You're the people, right, that are so confused. You think you're waking up, and instead of waking up, it's like the Matrix twice. It's like they, the powers that be, think, right, check this out for a ruse. We're going to convince them they're waking up and they're finding out the truth, and actually it's a load of bullshit, and they're going to wake up. Instead of coming up and out, they're going further deep in. It's a form of social engineering. Convincing you of all this shit takes you off the ball, because you're not watching the ball, you're not in the game, you're not really got your head screwed on, you're not concerned about the defense spending that's killing millions across the world, you're not concerned about the the money being filtered off by the politicians into their dirty slush funds. Like, you're missing the tricks while you're worried about whether Jesus told you the earth was flat. Like, fucking hell. That's the point.
Our children. Now, this is not the reason that I started homeschooling in the first place, but homeschooling has certainly been a blessing now because I'm able to at least give my children both sides of the equation when it comes to certain things. And it's funny because when you hear a lot of...
What does she mean, both sides of the equation when it comes to certain things? I wonder what she means by that. Like, she's going to teach them all sorts of weird shit, and they don't know. They've got no way of finding, out the truth, have they? They just listen to their mom tell them all sorts of weird shit. I mean, that sounds like a kind of child abuse. To abandon the curriculum in favour of talking a load of weird shit. You just posted about how Graham Linehan and Father Ted Wright was destroyed because he talked about trans... however... that's a different conversation, isn't it? Twitter and... Bear this... I'll field this quickly, Graham Linehan, because I followed his... I didn't follow exactly what he said and all of the things on Twitter, but I used to follow his Twitter because, I liked Father Ted and I think he's a funny guy. But I did notice, we can talk about this actually. Look, there's a video there about it. We'll have a look at it.
If you're a dad in the UK.
Shut up. This GB News, this fucking right-wing idiot news channel, GB News, fucking idiot propaganda, which is obviously not an independent news source, but it obviously is idiot propaganda, post-Brexit idiot propaganda. Newsnight interview, yeah, we'll have a look at it then. I'll prep it up and we'll do her first and we'll come back to it. But because I did, I think it's a good topic. I did notice, so I used to follow Graham Linehan on Twitter, and he was sometimes a moody chuffer who said rude things, and I sometimes thought, well, that's a bit close to the bone or rude, isn't it, Graham, on Twitter? You think you're a bit special, don't you, Graham, on Twitter? You think you're a bit special because you wrote Father Ted, but you haven't done anything since, like, and now he's banned. I think, it's only fair that Twitter, who are a private company, make their own rules about what they see acceptable, and if you break them, you get fucked off. And I think it's fair that it's a really liberal, open-minded place in terms of protecting people's right to be themselves and not be bullied by other people. So I think some of the things that he said were too close to the bone, and he got fucked off. And he just has to live by the sword, die by the sword. And I don't think trans people have to put up with that shit. And I think that it's blown out of proportion a bit because in the real world, like, these trans athletes shit. Oh, what if a woman who used to be a man, or was originally a man, but, originally born in a man's body, but always thought she was a woman, becomes a woman, and then competes in a weightlifting competition. Right, what about that? Well, I mean, how often does that happen, and how much does it affect fucking Jodie's life down the road? Like, it just fucking is stupid to bring out these fucking... and you look at the numbers of people in our societies who are actually going through these issues, like the number of people who are actually trans and the number of people who then decide to take up weightlifting, and you think, why is that your primary concern? Shouldn't people's mental health be a bigger concern? Because there's a lot more people in trans communities who are not weightlifting who have got mental health issues based on these conversations that are fucking being very mean to them. I just think it's ridiculous. And some of these people's ideas that you can't, like, who are you to judge what's going on inside someone else's head, inside someone else's body? Oh, well, biologically there's no such thing as that's your opinion, but this person feels differently and you can't get in their head and change that, so fuck off, leave them alone. Like, it just same with JK Rowling. Like, I'm not into bashing trans people or even protecting the sanctity of gender, because the reason I would be doing it is because I'd be angry about a very, very small number of people in society who have got their own sort of quite specific problems and issues to deal with, and I'm turning it into this like big political thing. And you know why it works as a political thing? Because all these right-wing Brexit bastards, all these, fucking, in my day, a man were a man and a woman were a woman. You can't have a fucking trans in a fucking women's bathroom, and you can't have a fucking trans. Like, all those people, they want to get on their high horse about it. Fuck them. Fuck them. They're in the old world. They're the past. They're losing, but they're not losing because they manage to claw back every now and then. Look at what's going on in the Conservative Party with Liz Truss. Look at what's going on with Boris Johnson. Look what happened with Brexit. Turkey's convinced to vote for Christmas, wasn't it? Because the people that voted for Brexit in the main were the working class people who were angry about foreign people and immigrants. Immigration's a sliver of their problems. Their actual problems are huge and economic and caused by the parties they voted in, because Boris Johnson wanted to rape them hard. So he got them to vote for him. And the way he did it was he convinced them that he was on their side. Oh, I also don't like immigrants. I'm also a man like you. I drink a pint of beer down the pub, me and Nigel Farage. When Nigel Farage and him fucked off immediately, wouldn't go near any of those council estates in Manchester or you know, Bradford that they convinced to vote for them. Wouldn't go near them and their problems. Don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck. In fact, more immigrants have come across the channel because of Brexit. They knew it would happen. They don't give a fuck. They're off with their own ideas. So it's all that, isn't it? It's all that. It seems a bit weird to me that, you know, people would, like Graham Linehan would die on that hill. You know, he's so angry about a small percentage of the population who feel their gender is not, you know, reflective of their internal struggle. He's so angry about that he would ruin his own public perception on the internet in the eyes, like, even if he kept his own thoughts to himself and didn't say it, like, no, he'll say it and fucking, you know, now I hate him. Now, I loved Father Ted, but fuck Graham Linehan. Like, why do we need time for him? We don't. We'll look at him later, though. I've yabbed my mouth off about that, and I want to get back to this. And today's a political episode, and I'm having a bit of a rant because we had a problem with the internet, and I'm letting all my feelings out on the internet like a bastard.
People naysaying homeschooling, they will tell you that homeschool parents are indoctrinating children.
Oh, right. No, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have said homeschool parents are indoctrinating children before. I would have said homeschool parents are trying to get their best broad education to their children in a slightly different way. And maybe they've got opinions about the school system. I didn't realise that they were indoctrinating. And now I realise they actually are, because you just said you were. Literally just said you were.
That their children will only learn one viewpoint on things, when it couldn't be further from the truth, because at least in our homeschool, I want my children to know more than one side. I want
more than one side, yeah. There's teaching somebody two sides to a debate, but then there's telling them which side is the correct side, isn't there? Not, I want to give them all the ideas and let them choose for themselves. That's not what she's saying. She's saying, I'll give them both sides. Some people say this, but we know this. Like, it's just fucking... It's a silly thing to say.
Them to ask questions, because that is what I am doing.
She wants them to ask questions. Well, did she not notice? I mean, maybe she's confused about school. It might be different in America, but in England, they taught us to ask questions. Like, put your hand up if you don't know. Like, the whole point was to ask a lot of questions, and a lot of the topics that we covered were questioning in their own nature. You know, studying history was not a case of these are the facts, but sometimes it was these are the questions, and what do you think about this, and how do we know that, and how can we know this, and, you know, question the narrative is like what they teach you to do. I remember my economics teacher, this is so cool actually. I'm not moderating drink water. I don't know. You can see that I'm chatting load of shit and just waving my hands around. I've got auto moderator because YouTube has auto moderator, and that's that. I'm sorry if anyone's retracting anything or anything. Eugenics is a bad... I could see eugenics up there, and that's a bad thing. Eugenics is a bad thing. I'm just going to say that. But questioning the narrative... I got a bit distracted there, actually. Got a bit distracted. You can be seen, drink water. It says, look, you change spellings, but sometimes your comments don't show. Look, you know, seems to be working reasonably for most people. And yeah, how Steve said that DSP was unaware, he did not know the implications astound me. I'm just checking through the comments. It all seems okay. Oh, shit is banned on here. Yeah, maybe some of the bad words are banned on here. And YouTube has probably got its own ideas about what the bad words are. So I was saying about asking questions. Yeah, my economics teacher, we did a lesson, right? And you can do this now in chat. You can do this now in chat. Form groups. Form groups. We'll get PC Paint out. I can't. Where's PC Paint? Open my Paint. I don't need Paint, do I? Do I need Paint? Yes. There's Paint. Right. Have I got Paint on here? Have I had it before? Let's use the Words window, because Words didn't work earlier, did it? So Let's use the words window. Boom, paint. Okay, so this is what we did in class. This was a really good lesson. I thought it was fucking brilliant. I won't do the whole like big shebang, but give me a brush in PC Paint, and I'm going to draw us. This is our island. Oh, you've just been washed up on an island. Oh, you've just been washed up on an island. Oh, look at you. And you got a tree, and here is a cave which I will fill. And I just do that like that. And here is some fishies. These look like fishies. You know they look like fishies because I've mentioned it. But that's a cliff. It's like a cliff face. And this is like a beach. And maybe there's some like crabbies on the beach, which I won't be able to draw a crabby in paint, will I? So, you know, crabbies on the beach. So this is your little desert island. Let's have some colour. Let's have a bit of colour. Let's have a little bit of colour. Look, there's the fishies. That's the sea. The sea and the fishies are the same colour. Oh, I've ruined it. This is your beach. Right, and you're in teams. You got day one. You need food. You need shelter. You need water. Where's the water, actually? I hadn't done the water. There was a little stream, maybe. Let's do a little stream. Let's have a little stream. Come here, little girl. Come and have a look at my little stream. Have a look at my puppy. Have a look at my little puppy. Come here, little girl. I don't know why the mountains and the streams became paedophilic, but there we go. There's a small mountain range with a stream coming out. Right, day one. It's like Lord of the Flies. Some things aren't showing on my screen. They should be. That guy wants to talk to me so bad I'll pay him money because that's what Babylon tells us. You want to talk to me about, I'll pay him. I mean, no, I just think that people's time is worth money. I just think people, like, I'm trying hard to create a legitimate media product here. I mean, I know I'm a fucking mess and it comes across that way, but I am trying hard to create a legitimate media product, and people's time is worth money. I want to treat them fairly. I don't want to abuse people and say, oh, can you do something for me, be on my stream, be part of my content, and I'll benefit from that, and fuck you. Like, you know, I want to treat them fairly, and so if I could pay him $200 an hour, that would be my going rate. Like, if I could afford that, but I can't, so I'll pay him, like, you know, a normal, what I would consider a fair. If I did a haircut for somebody, it'd be £25 and it'd take about, you know, 40 minutes. So anywhere between that and £40 an hour is reasonable money for me. I'd say £40 an episode, 2.5 hours, something like that at the start. Like, I'm going to be open about this, because it's just, yeah, if I'm asking you to contribute and tip and building up to a sponsor and hoping they'd benefit the stream, that's what we're into. So I just think it's fair. Anyway, look, here's your map. Here's your Lord of the Flies. What I want you to do, this is day one, right? And you've got to think about this. Doing the lesson now. Day one, we need water, we need food, and we need shelter. They're the things you need. You can decide in what order you need, but it takes one day. You know, like, he did time, actually. He did time, didn't he? Like, this was 8 hours. This has got coconuts. I forgot to draw the coconuts. Let's have some coconuts. Like, this is like 8 hours. How many hours in a day? There's 24 hours in a day, right? We'll call it 12s. We'll call them 12s, because I can't remember the exact numbers. But it takes 12 hours to catch a fish. It takes 12 hours to catch a coconut. Going down, like, it's quite a big island. You have to walk all the way, and there's lots of stuff in the way. It takes 12 hours to do that. Sorting out the cave is 12 hours. The mountains is 12 hours. Like, and you have to decide in this lesson where you want to spend your time. We need hula girls. You have to do the skirts. That's a task. But in a day, which tasks are you going to do in what order? And we all sat down and we worked it out, and we spent hours, you know, not hours, but like 10 minutes. Oh, I think we should get coconuts. What do you think? Do you want fish? Is fish safer than coconuts? Or, like, do you want a crabbin? Is it a crabbin is important to you? Is the water the most important? Maybe the cave. Maybe we need to start a fire in the cave. And what we found out when we added it all up, I'm just going to briefly go over it. So, you've often had comments appearing in YouTube chat. Everyone sees it. Doesn't make it onto the streaming comments. It's the AI. Yeah, it's YouTube making decisions maybe about their, because they're just constantly updating, and like this whole streaming thing on YouTube is fairly new to them compared to Twitch. So maybe that. Like, do you want to fire in your cave? Let's say that takes you 12 hours to gather the sticks and do it. So you make these decisions, and what we found out, I'll briefly tell you, because it, you know, I'm not actually here to be a proper teacher, but what we found out was you couldn't do it all in a day. Like, you could either have your cave fire sorted and a crabbin, but then you've got no water, or you could have the water from the stream and a fish, but then you've got no cave. 12 hours for each task, say. Yeah, it looks like Australia. It does actually. It's exactly this. That's exactly the same as Australia. Do you want to see the weather today in Australia? It's sunny. Look, it's sunny in Australia. Hot. You can tell because there's sun. So you can have your coconuts, but then you can't also have the water and the cave. And what we discovered was it wasn't possible. I mean, I did this thing, and I'm like, what the fuck are you teaching me here, you stupid economics teacher? Like, you enjoy this because you're like, oh, I'll tell you what we should do. We should go to the beach and catch a crab. Oh, I wouldn't catch a crab. Oh, I'd go and get water. And you're all arguing and discussing. And then like, the rule is, the lesson is, you can't do it all. Economics is the social study of scarce resources. Scarce resources. So where's that come from? And why the fuck am I talking about that? Today's not, this is unplanned today. I had a planned lesson, I've had a planned episode, and it's all gone up the fucking wall.
I want them to ask questions.
Ask questions, that's it, ask questions. So my teacher was teaching me on day one, and I remember this very clearly for that reason. He was teaching me on day one, don't just blindly follow and just assume, because we all assumed there was an answer. We all assumed there was a right answer and we were getting it wrong. And that maybe if somebody went for the coconuts and somebody went for the water, we could meet back in the middle at the cave. And like we were trying to work out a correct, and he's saying, no. Sometimes you got to question even the question. You got to say, right, it's not possible to get coconuts and water and this. So either we divide our time differently, we starve, or we come up with an outside the box, you know, we question the question. Is it necessary to get all these? What order do you have to get them in? Like, other questions. That was the whole point. So, I remember clearly at school being taught to question the narrative. You know, that was what they were teaching me to do. That's why they were giving me the education. That's why they were teaching me how language worked. That's what, I mean, that's how I'm able now today to do it. And that's what led me on to becoming actually quite an antagonistic anti-capitalist, because, hello, question the narrative. But for someone to be on the internet and telling me to question the narrative, and what they believe is the Bible is the truth, the word of the Bible, one word taken out of context equals this. Like, have you not questioned the narrative? That's a basic. That's a basic. That's what religion taught us to. Like, religion was the narrative, and then education marks religion is the opiate of the masses. You know, education taught us to question the narrative. Education taught us to question the political elites. Education taught us. That's why it's a dangerous thing, and that's why the education system at the moment might be failing you. I don't know how it's working in America. In the UK, it's funny that the people who pay for the posh, expensive schools think they get the best education, but actually they not necessarily do. But they certainly do have a lot more resources. I remember going from our school with one minibus, driving to a private school to do a competition, a sports competition, a rugby game or whatever, and they had a fleet of minibuses. They had 12, and we had one. So it does make a difference in what you've got. But now I see a lot of schools with a lot of resources. You know, we're trying to teach our kids, and hopefully we're trying to make that fair to all, so they've all got an access to maybe the next level, to university, to critical thinking. That's the whole point of a free and open education system. So I don't know exactly what goes on in America, but I question the narrative that tells me school is trying to hold me down, because they definitely taught me how to think. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe you've got your own opinions. Don't go crab diving. What the point was in the The point was in this is that you can't win. Scarce resources. There's not enough hours in a day. If you don't figure out a system, like in today's world, like what I guess he went on to say in the lesson, and I'm paraphrasing now because I can't remember everything, but in today's world, you've probably got like a coconut factory that makes like the coconut bars. You've probably got like a fishing community that take care of all the fishing in their boats, like with specialist equipment. You know, you've got a water treatment. It's got a pipe that comes from a water treatment plant. And that without this cooperation in society, you know, if you're just living in a cave and collecting your coconuts, you're not going to get it done. You're going to spend your whole day in subsistence. And this is why this is what we call subsistence economy. And it means that you can't get anywhere because you just spend your whole day scrubbing about for the basics. And that's nearly what we're on. We're almost at an economic subsistence now, because the powers that be, the rich fuckers that went to the private schools that now run the government, they're making a lot of money off us having to scrub around. So I think that was the general principle there. You have to work in cooperation, otherwise you end up in subsistence. And you do. You do. Your husband deliberately failed the exam to get into the private school and ended up at a Borstal. Oh dear. I did grammar school, so I was lucky, and I passed the exam for the private school, but chose not to go because the grammar school was closer, frankly. But no, I've got no, bones about it. I think everyone's got opportunities. I don't think I think you're lucky if you get to go to a private school in ways. So I'm not going to completely slander it, although I don't think you get a complete perspective on life. I think the people you mix with and the way they behave around you doesn't give you a complete perspective on life. And I think comprehensive schools have got a lot of positives as well, but there are difficulties there too. So I think we need to improve these systems, absolutely. But I think everyone who goes into a school and has an opportunity, wide range of teachers, maybe one or two that they gel with, something they get on well with, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's a art thing or whatever, but they get opportunities to discover different things, and it's wonderful. So generally I think school is a good thing, and I think homeschooling is a worry for that reason. I don't have to go too overboard about that, do I? But we haven't even got into what she's doing. 2 minutes, let's crack on.
I am doing is I am asking questions. Children who in school question things are usually punished, or maybe name called by other students.
Don't be stupid. Although I do remember one day where I put up my hand in biology. It was chemistry. We had the Bunsen burners out, and I said, "How hot is a flame?" And my teacher looked at me like I'd gone out and was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "How hot is a flame?" And she was like, "Well, it varies." Anyway, so back to covalent bonding. I think you can't question things if you're not taught all these different. If you don't know what bonds even are, how do you question chemistry? My teachers taught me so much that they didn't shout me down. In general, they didn't shout me down for asking questions. It was encouraged. Other students didn't poo-poo you for asking questions. It was encouraged. I don't know what school she's been to or what she thinks of school, but it's much, much different to what she's telling us it is. You tell me in chat, were you allowed to ask questions in school? Were you punished by other students for asking questions? School is BS private or not, says Drinkwater. Anyone who went to rich private school was rich. Anyone who went to private school was rich. Your parents worked really hard to get you through it. There is, conversations to be had about that, isn't there? And I personally think that it's not a beneficial thing to close off a certain section of society, whether rich or poor, and put them all together and say, right, you're doing it together there and we'll do it separately here. I think that's a mistake. So I think it's good to have a cross-section of society in educational establishments. And I think you should learn, you should go and, because you're not going out into the world at school, you're doing it within a school environment, but you should meet people from all different walks of life, shouldn't you? And they should be your peers, because that's what the world is like. So who knows? But also, if you're born into rich parents and your parents are well off and they send you to an expensive school for your benefit because they think it's going to give you a decent education and better opportunities in life. And it actually does, because you meet someone's, your best friend's dad's Boris Johnson's mate or whatever. No, I can see that as well. So I'm not going to be like, if I won the lottery and I had the choice of my local comprehensive, but there were problems with bullying and maybe a drug problem or this or whatever, I'm casting aspersions, trying to say the worst there, to try and bring up ideas that might give reason for different thoughts. I think we should be fair and balanced to all people, and that includes people who are rich chuffers who run the world, but maybe they don't run the world. I don't know. But that's why I think the grammar school system's good, is because it's based on intelligence rather than finance. But then, it could be argued that those who come from a more stable home life and are privately tutored do better in the exams. So I don't know. The armed forces used to pay 90% of private school fees for parents who travel the world. So there you go. There's another aspect of it, isn't it? There's all sorts of different things. Schooling is a very interesting and wide conversation to have. So I'm not going to poo-poo anything, but I think it's a bit unfair that like a private school's got 12 minibuses where down the road we had one. And I think that's an imbalance. I think maybe you should do some sort of tax or levy on school systeming, where if people are going to pump money into a private education system, some of that gets automatically taxed and given to the comprehensive to keep them up to speed. That would seem fair, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Made pariahs if they don't believe certain things.
Made pariahs if they don't believe certain things. I don't know about that.
So, I'm not quite understanding how people believe that children in school are actually learning, more than one viewpoint on things.
Well, you're not saying learn more than one viewpoint. We'd learn loads of different viewpoints on things. I mean, history is a great example. We learned both sides of the war, didn't we? We learned Hitler's viewpoint on it, and we learned the Allies' viewpoint on it. It turned out Hitler was fucking nuts. So learning it doesn't mean you have to ascribe to it. And no, they probably don't teach flat earth in schools as a viewpoint, do they? They probably don't. And they probably, there's probably other things that she believes that they probably don't teach. But do you know what? You could still inform or indoctrinate your children about that when they get home and leave them to have the same education as everyone else, maybe. Like that fair and balanced education, couldn't you? It seems like a bit of a worry to me, Shelley.
So with that being said, I do think that finding a balance in your homeschool is so important, because you don't want to be guilty of doing exactly what we are accusing the schools of doing, which they usually are doing. We don't want to tell our children only one side of the story, because the fact remains. She
talks around the subject, doesn't she? But what she's actually talking about here is strange religious conspiracy theory, and excuse me, and it goes further than that. It goes to like flat earth and Tartaria and all of that. She even did a video recently on, is the earth hollow and are people living in the middle of the earth?
Means that if your child is going to learn how to have proper reasoning skills, and if they're going to be able to navigate their way in the world, they're going to need to know how to research things, how to formulate their own educated opinion about.
So they need to know how to research things. That's what we did at school. They would give us a topic and they'd say, go away and do your homework and come back and show me your research. We did loads of that at school. That's what school taught me to do. It goes on, university, you do a dissertation, that's all your own work. So she's saying that they need to know how to learn, but that's what they teach them in school. So she's confused there, because it's clearly something that's being taught in school. Otherwise, you couldn't have a university system. No one would be able to do a dissertation. You have to formulate your own educated opinion, but in order to do that, you need to have the basic understanding of the world. You need to be able to understand physics, mathematics, biology, chemistry. You need to understand these things. And I don't know if she understands all of those subjects to the depth that my chemistry teacher, my biology teacher, my mathematics teacher, I don't know if she's a specialist in all those areas, because I needed those specialists to help me really get to grips with those different concepts of the world. So I think she's failing her children by not giving them the underpinning knowledge that allows them to formulate educated opinions. If you don't have underpinning knowledge, you can't do good research. You wouldn't even know where to start.
Things, and so you don't want to hand things to them and expect them to believe them just because you, the parent, are saying that it's true, especially when it comes.
I don't know about what Mark Hamill's been saying, Squirrel Sniper. I don't know what goes on when you're in the world of Hollywood, but sometimes those people don't really have the right ideas about many things, do they? Because being Luke Skywalker all your life doesn't really qualify you, does it?
to educating your children. A properly educated child will know how to find the answers that they are looking for. And sometimes they might not find a concrete answer, but they may at least be able to find enough evidence that they can decide what they think is most likely in that case.
Yeah, and that's our problem here, Shelley, is I feel that I've been well educated, not I'm so clever, but I'm lucky in our Western society, unlike some people, like in the Ukraine, you're not getting a good education right now because they've blown up your country, didn't they, Russia? So I'm lucky that I got a stable and balanced education. I went through it, I did it, came out with my GCSEs, got my A-levels eventually after failing them the first time, and did go to university. Didn't get a degree, but did go to university. So I've seen it all. And then went on and became a hairdresser. I did an HND in media as well. So I've done like more what you might call vocational training through our education system as well. More on the job training, stuff like that. So I've seen it all. And like you're saying school is copy paste. I don't know. My school wouldn't have accepted that. I remember the projects we had to do, and I had to go away and do the projects, and my mom had to help me at home because I hadn't done them in time. It wouldn't have been acceptable, but I think that we've got this problem is that I don't think she's got the same education as me. I think somewhere along the line, maybe, I don't know what happened to her at school, maybe a teacher felt her up or something. She's not had a good time. She's got a bad idea about it. But I don't think that, maybe I don't have the best view of the American school system. Maybe I don't see it that well because I'm not in it, haven't been in it. Some years have gone past since I was even at school. My school looks very different to when I was there. I got taught Latin and was like kept on the stairs for detention. They don't do that anymore. But, I think that she's got a misguided opinion, and the reason I see it as misguided is because I've got a different experience of education. I say different. So it seems to me that if she had had a really good, really well-rounded education, she wouldn't think this about schooling, would she? She'd think, no, it was really good. I got a really good, well-rounded education, so I sent my children to the same school because I got a really good education. So there you will. So in that case, what I'm saying there, as a logical conclusion, is she's not that well educated. And if we're accepting that, and she might also accept it because she did not like the school system. She says it doesn't even educate you. And if her parents weren't teaching her truth or shit at home, how is she getting educated? She's had to teach herself. She's had to make it all up as she goes along. So she's not well educated. We're better. I'll say we, all you in chat, you went to school, didn't you? You said school was copy and paste, or at least you fucking went there. You're better educated than she is because you've been to a school and she has, whatever experience she has of it, has decided to disregard it. But she hasn't got something else in place. Her children might be well educated if she's a good educator, but she's not telling us, I had good homeschooling, that's where I'm coming from. She's saying, I don't like public school, therefore it's wrong. They're not going to get a good education there because I didn't. That's kind of what she's saying. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's a fair logical conclusion, which would lead me to believe that my opinion is probably more valid because I've got a better education.
That they can decide what they think is most likely in that case. So you need to be straightforward with your children. And that's one thing. If you have a good relationship with your children, if you're very open with them.
And this is another problem, is that if they're your children and you're their educator, I don't know, my fucking tickly nose now. Why is it, this nose of mine will tickle, and it will tickle when I'm on the internet and talking, and I'll have to scratch it like this, and it makes me feel like an idiot. You don't see. Who's a top one on the telly? Who's a top one on the telly? Eamon Holmes. You don't see Eamon Holmes scratching his nose on the morning show, do you? Anyway, look. Good relationship with your children, she's saying. That's an issue because parents and teachers are different, but you've rolled it all into one, so that's going to affect your relationship with both, whether you're being a teacher or a parent. Your children don't know which hat you've got on unless you specifically wear a hat that says, and even then that's fucking confusing for them. It turns it into a muddy world where you've got both problems. You got 3 A-levels, but it was rubbish. You got 3 A's at A-level, that's good going. I would say, when you say about copy and paste, actually, I would agree with you there in one aspect, Drinkwater, is that I did GCSEs, and whatever they told me in class, I told them in the exam, and I got my 2A, 6Bs, 4Cs and 2A stars. It wasn't even hard. I just remembered what they said and I wrote it down. But in A-levels, I had to work harder to find out information to write down. I had less to write in the exams. That's why I failed. I didn't go to as many lessons. I was out smoking. So I failed my A-levels the first time around. The second time round, I felt, I can't remember all these names and dates for sociology. I remember the stuff they did, but not who did it and when. So I find that really difficult. And you lose marks if you don't remember the name and the date. And that's just copy-paste. And I got a bit cross with some of that. So I do kind of agree with you in some aspects. But the ability to critically think your way through an A-level is a higher educational standard than believing the earth is flat, maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Some people in our chat actually still believe. I've got another video to look at about that. And we've got so much lined up, haven't we? Now we've got Graham Linehan and trans people. We might have to do Graham Linehan as his own episode, actually, to be fair, because this is now going on a bit, which is good because at least we've got a stream out. Because I promised you a stream.
Already know what you think about certain things. So even if you are using, for example, traditional homeschooling curriculum with your children, this is a question that a lot of people ask me is, what sort of homeschool curriculum do I use with my children?
Well, that's an issue, isn't it, as well? Because your homeschool curriculum, if you're using an ascribed curriculum, then that's them telling you what to teach your children. So you can't possibly use that because that's the whole point. You don't want to let them teach you what they think, do you? So you're going to have to throw the curriculum completely out the window.
If I believe that most of them are probably not telling the correct things. Well, I'll get to this a little bit later, but I do typically use more traditional curriculum, and I'll tell you how I do that, and I'll tell you why I do that. But again, it's important that your kids, just be open with them right from the...
Who's teaching your kids now? When you're recording this video, what are your kids doing? Where are they?
Beginning, and help them to know that, history, well, this is something that I tell my children. History is written by the victors, and we know that it's been manipulated. We know that much of what we are taught about our past is not accurate.
I mean, that's wrong and right in a way, isn't it? But it's so general that you can't draw anything from it. Then that's not how you would teach people. You wouldn't say to somebody, right, bear in mind, you fucking can't believe anything they say, so, let's see what they say. You didn't question the shape of the earth at all during schooling because you didn't need to, because they taught you the commonly held truths of the world. Like, you didn't question whether 2 and 2 added up to 5, did you? Because it doesn't. Like, that's the whole point of an education, is to, like, the things that have been learned over time, the things that have come to become the core knowledge, the facts, are imparted to you in such a way that you understand them. Not indoctrinated to you so you can't question them, but you are encouraged to question them to help you understand them. So, I think that's probably the answer to that. And for her to say to her kids, well, history is written by the victors and it's not accurate. Well, that's rubbish. That's rubbish. I mean, it was the case in certain ways, but it's not the truth, is it? That's not the truth. We're talking about truth and movements as well here. So, for example, giving blankets with smallpox to the Native Americans. Giving blankets with smallpox. I mean, this is history. This is the wrong... I'm not going on there. It's it's not a real history website, is it? I don't want to allow anything. I want to have not necessary, nothing, no. Allow selection, right. So, settlers in North America gave blankets with smallpox on them to the native people, and it killed the native people, and that was bad. Yeah. So after that, they colonized and they won. So the winners are the people that did the killing, the bad killing. The slave trade, they're the winners. Now, history was written by the winners, but it contains all the bad stuff. What the fuck's going on there? Were they proud of it? Did they lie? No, it turns out there is no one group of winners, is there? There are different, even in America today, there are different political perspectives and parties. There's no, you know, it's a silly thing to say. Otherwise, how the fuck is she allowed on YouTube to say what she's saying? How is she allowed on YouTube to say what she's saying? Oh, she's not, because if she says it, they'll ban her because it's misinformation. Oh, I see, okay. Oh, it's hard work, isn't it? But, like, history's not... Here is an example, one example of it not being black and white, using those terms, of it not being clear cut. These are the winners, these are the losers. This is the story, this is the not story. Is it? It's not like that. You know, we talk about all sorts of things. Now I've got a fly in the room. Having the best day of my... Today's supposed to be the best day of my streaming career thus far. It's best day of my streams thus far, and thus far it's been one of the most difficult to deal with days. We've had the internet not working, we've had words on stream not working. I've used my trying to turn my anger into motivation to do a good episode on this chuffer, who does make me a bit cross. I thought I'd combine the two because I don't want to I don't want to be cross and ranty on the internet, but why not use this energy? And now I've got a fly in the room, and I hate flies in the room. It will never leave. I have to sit here and watch it buzz around. Stop complaining, Scotty.
It's not correct. And so when we do learn about certain historical events or certain historical facts, what I always tell them is that
a right treat.
This is what most people believe. And so a lot of this could very possibly be true, but we need to take this with a grain of salt because we don't know 100% that this is a fact. Because, you know, even if you look around the world, different countries will look at one event and they will give entirely different viewpoints on it because
they teach that at school.
It just depends on where it's coming from. And it's important that your children know that. And even when it comes to science is up for debate.
Oh.
And they won't tell you that.
Whoa, science is up for debate. Well, you know, she talks in generalities, but certainly, I mean, for example, depression. It turns out the theory of... This is a website called The Conversation. I look on this a lot, so it probably came up quick because it's both a really good website and I look on it a lot. It's written by people who have got degrees in whatever. Like, if this one's about psychology and psychiatry, this one's written by Mark Horowitz. You can click his thing, you can see who it is. He's a clinical research fellow in psychiatry at the university, UCL, whatever that is, California, is it? Joanna Moncrief, a professor of critical and social psychiatry. So they've written this. They're available to be, you know, verified. It's like a news outlet, but it's not. It's written by academics. And so chemical imbalance theory of depression, clearing up some misconceptions. It turns out recently there were new studies that question the chemical imbalance theory, and now we've decided to change our ideas. It turns out serotonin and lack of does not cause depression, and we've decided to say, right, okay, you've proved it, we'll go with that. It's not that it's up for debate, it's that it's constantly being checked, cross-checked. You come up with a hypothesis. I think maybe this. How can we check it? Let's remove all of the variables and we'll keep a control group and we'll check it. And when we check it, we'll do our results and then we'll put them out in the world and we'll ask all our peers to check it. And then they can do the experiment as well. And if it's not the same, it's not valid, it's not the same, you know, they'll go and what everyone together comes up with as a solution. I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous to suggest that science is up for debate when it's not about debate, it's about facts, it's about confirming facts. That's what science is. It's the measurements, isn't it? What is science? An intellectual and practical activity encompassing a systematic study of structure and behaviour of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. So it's not about my opinion, it's not about what's up for debate, it's about what's observed, and through experimental practice where 10 times I can run this and it's going to be the same every time, the only thing I'm changing is this one thing, then we know it, then it's a fact, it's a science fact. So yes, it gets questioned, and yes, we do continually update and question. I mean, what do you think they're doing with the Higgs boson? And like, you know, we're on the cutting edge. We're always on the cutting edge because that's the cutting edge. Everything we find out new is new. And then we update. what they were doing 1800s is different for today. So there's a good example of how you can tell. So no one's like faking science, and it's not up for debate. It's not up for debate. There aren't things they won't tell you. They tell you everything. Like, where she got that funny idea in her head? That's a weird idea. And science is so vague. She's saying science, and science means biology, chemistry, physics. Like, what? It's all up for debate.
In schools, a lot of what they're teaching in science is more like scientism. It's almost like a religion. You are not allowed to question science at all.
Hello? What did I just say? Science is questioning. Observational experiments. It's questioning. So you are allowed to question science. You're encouraged to question it. Put up your hands if you don't understand. Like, you are encouraged to question it. In fact, if you've got a question, do the experiment. Publish the details. Show me. We want to know. Like, what is she on about?
Anymore. And there are certain things when it comes to homeschooling that I'm pretty confident in sharing with my children, like what mammals are, what reptiles are.
So the classification of a mammal you're prepared to share. I mean, I would assume that you also share, because remember, she's God-based, that God created the mammals all on the same day and not evolution. I don't know, we're not even questioning that yet, are we? But
how plants produce their food, those sorts of things. But then there are those other kind of more gray areas.
And you know how we know what mammals are and how plants produce their food? Because we observed it. With plants, we did experiments. It's potato starch, isn't it? Plants produce food, GCSE experiments. Look, this will be on the curriculum. Photosynthesis, I remember doing this. Photosynthesis experiments, starch, leaf and pondweed. So the photosynthesis experiments are on the GCSE science. Like, maybe it's different in America, but like, the things she's happy with are being taught in schools. So what? I thought she was just saying a minute ago that they got it wrong. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with all your chat, but you're talking to each other, so I think that's okay. Like, I don't mind. I think you're okay talking to each other. Does she teach her kids via YouTube too? No, she has the kids in some posts on the community thing, but she doesn't have them in the videos necessarily. Does she do sex education? I don't know. She's obviously had sex because she's got kids.
When you talk about cosmology, when you talk about
what?
Just the formation of...
What's cosmology? She means, like, the space. Astronomy that involves origin and evolution of the universe. Oh god. Well, you know why she's into that, don't you? What did she say? She said there's debate in cosmology.
About cosmology.
Grey areas in cosmology. Yeah, the Big Bang might not be real. So she's getting confused here, because what happens in schools is they will say, for example, our current theory is, and there are questions, and this is what we don't know. And this is how far the theory gets us. And this is the current theory. And it used to be this, and it changed to this, and now it's this. So it could be that we might find out more. That's what they'll tell you in school about that. She's going to say, oh no, they tell you it's the Big Bang and it's nothing, and you're not allowed to question it. It's science. So I think this is where she's getting her eggs, all getting eggy here, isn't it? Because, cosmology, it changes. The standard new evidence against Sabine Hossenfelder. This is a good example. This is an advert, obviously, because the internet. Sabine Hossenfelder is a YouTuber, and she's science-based.
How the universe works on large scales. There's dark matter and there's dark energy, and there's the expansion of the universe that allows matter to cool and clump and form galaxies. The key assumption to this model for the universe is the cosmological principle, according to which the universe is approximately the same everywhere.
So bear in mind, this is a science, she's science, she's astrophysics, she's not truther, she's not, flat earther, she's science, and she likes to keep people updated with the latest updates in science. So here she is telling us that the standard cosmological principle is something that we're questioning in science, and this is the answers we've been coming up from questioning it, and it's brought up more questions.
But increasingly more observations show that the universe just isn't the same everywhere. What are those observations? Why are they a problem? And what does it mean? That's what we'll talk about today.
So get out of here if you're telling me that you're not allowed to question science in school. Get out of here if you're telling me that, you know, cosmology's got grey areas, so like therefore I should take my kids out of school. Like, get out of here.
When you talk about just the formation of the earth and the universe in general, where people came from, climate change, there are
She's a climate change denier.
lot of different aspects that are taught in schools. As
what about the Holocaust? What do you think about that, love?
If they 100% know for a fact that what they are teaching is accurate.
I hope you're not denying that as well.
But it's not. It's up for debate.
It's up for debate. It's up for debate. Well, certain things are, you know, it's funny because that is kind of true. It is up for debate. Anything is up for debate. If you want to debate anything, it's all up for debate. I don't think people change their minds because they participate in a debate. I think what they do is they use a debate to say, all right, these are all my arguments and this is what they're going to say and this is how I can counter it. And at the end of the debate, they haven't listened to what the other people said. They've done their arguing. So I think maybe the audience get a chance to see different sides and make up some ideas, but maybe it's manipulation thrown at them because it's a debate in front of an audience. So I think debates aren't actually that useful, but it is up for debate if you want to debate it. Anything is. It's kind of what we're doing here. We can do it together. Sorry, chat. I've slowed the chat there. Sorry. When you're a teenager, you're even more dry and logical than me. Since then, you've seen stuff you can't handle. It blows everything they think is facts apart. Okay, so I'll agree that. Do you know what? It's funny because in my there's two sides to humans. All of us, we've got different facets to our personalities. In my cold light of day, I'll tell you all these logic facts on the internet. But you know, late at night when I thought I saw a ghost. Did I see a ghost? And it's 4 a.m. Sometimes I can be as human and confused as anyone, and I don't know for definite anything definite. But when you die, I'll find out, I suppose, won't I, whether God exists or doesn't? But then even then, I won't be able to verify it, will I? I don't know. So sometimes I allow myself these human flights of fantasy and sort of go with things, and other times I'm strictly cold light of day. I think when I'm on the internet, I'm more cold light of day because I think it's dangerous. Certainly people with mental health issues, or you can develop mental health issues by going too far down a rabbit hole that doesn't serve you in any logical way. Getting a good education probably serves you better than questioning everything around you and not trusting anyone. And you know what I mean? You've still got to operate in society on a mental health level. So I think her children are more likely to come out damaged psychologically, paranoid, whatever, long-term psychological problems than people who generally go to the same school as everyone else and are part of a peer group. So, there are these things as well, yeah. So I appear to be very debunky, matter-of-factual, but in actual fact, in the real world, if we sat around a campfire, I'll tell ghost stories with the best of them, and we'll have, different facets to our personalities at different times, and I'll be open to lots of different things. I think I'm very careful to be open to things, but where I see I don't want to be open to idiocy, I don't want to be so open-minded that my brain falls out, as Darren Brown would say. I don't want to be so open-minded that my brain falls out. So I want to be careful to guide people in a responsible way on the internet. So I think I'm being more responsible than she is in the way I'm discussing this. I think she's being irresponsible by promoting the idea that you should take your children out of school if you're worried about the New World Order. I think that's maybe more of a worry than leave them in school so they get a good general education, and then at university level, when they're 19 or 20, say to them, look, there's a lot of stuff you've been taught in school and there's a lot of different ideas out there in the world. Now you're a fully formed adult with the ability to deal with this stuff. I want to show you some different stuff. I want to show you some war crimes. I want to show you some lies that were told. I want to show you where our government literally used biological weapons against us. And I want to talk to you on different levels about these different things. But I don't want you to lose your mind. And I don't want you to end up in a state of, unable to believe in anything in life, question everything to the point where you lose your marbles and you feel paranoid. So, I think maybe you shouldn't start kids on this shit early.
You know, even gravity. A lot of people don't know that even gravity is just a theory.
Gravity is not, it's not... She's wrong, isn't she? She's categorically... Imagine if your teacher said to you, gravity's just a theory. Well, it's not, is it? Because I'm actually sitting here. Like, I'm actually sitting here. I'm not... Like, if this is not a theory... Like, that happened. It's not theoretical that this is falling. Is it? That's not theoretical. That's actually happening. So it's not a theory. The theory is how we explain it through physics. Our physics theory of what, you know, forces are at play and how those forces are created. That's a theory. And it's quite a good theory, and it's the theory that holds the most water and weight. And we only got there through questioning the narrative and questioning things and doing experiments. So, like, they're the best theories of the day, and they are so good that they enable us to understand the world. Like, let's say, like you're hearing me, right? You're hearing what I'm saying. You're glad I'm denser than the air around me. I'm denser than a lot of people as well. So, although I tote my own trumpet, I'm no Alfred Einstein. I'm no Alfred Einstein. So, you can hear what I'm saying. Yeah, you can hear me, literally hear me. So that is air pressure. It sounds fucking weird, doesn't it? It sounds weird. It's air pressure. I'm changing the pressure of the air with my mouth, and it's coming out as sounds. It's coming through and using my voice box. There's biology involved, and that is being recorded down the microphone. So now it's science and technology now, and somehow that's getting down this wire and into the internet. And then it's coming out through your device, and it's changing the air pressure through the little speaker. And then your ear is hearing the change in air pressure, and in your ear, little bones are vibrating, and they're vibrating against like a drum skin, like a membrane, and that has little bones touching it, which go to eventually nerves, and these nerves send like an electric signal to your brain. A bit like an electric signature chip. I mean, I'm not an expert in neuroscience, but from what I understand, and inside your brain somewhere, and this is probably where we get to the can't question science, but you can question it because they got people questioning this right now because they need to find out. Somewhere in your brain, it's turned into sound, and how and exactly why, and, you know, it's a bit of a head test. But somewhere that's happening, and there's no real sound. If a tree falls to the ground and no one's around, does it go? No, air pressure changes. There is no sound. The colours you see are not real. They're wavelengths of light that's reflecting off surfaces at different rates. So, like, saying gravity is just a theory, like, knowing that the light is a wavelength, knowing the sound is an air pressure, that's the theory behind it. But the world I exist in, the representations my brain creates, I want to say non-real, obviously it is real, but you know, the construct in my brain is not what's really there, is it? You might see a different red to me. Red might not even exist. Maybe it's just a texture, and an alien race wouldn't ever see red, and no other race in the world, you know, no other being could ever see red if you don't have that kind of brain or something. I don't know, like, but it's all theory, isn't it? And so the theory, the knowing it's a wavelength, in physics you could probably draw, there's probably a formula, hang on, look, there's probably a formula for light waves. Yeah, there is, isn't there? There's going to be, isn't there? A formula. There we go, look. Knowing that, and I don't know that, that's like sigma theta nd equals or something, I don't know, like, that's the physics, that's like proper education. Knowing that, the theory, that's one thing, but seeing things with your eyes isn't this. You don't do that in your head when you see things. You don't need to work out theta e nda equals, your brain does it, automatic, evolved that way. So what she's saying is, you know, gravity's just a theory. Well, everything's just a theory, but you don't need to know the theory to understand the world in certain ways. But understanding the theory shows you how you understand the world and what it's therefore made up of. It goes deeper. So saying to somebody, gravity's just a theory, no, it's not. It's actually happening. And knowing what the theory is a different, deeper conversation entirely. And I don't know if she knows, because she's telling me categorically gravity is just a theory. Let's see the formula for gravity. Like, I would have to have somebody like, you know, I'm trying to think of somebody that you might know, Professor Brian Cox or Neil deGrasse Tyson or someone, you know, I'd have to have someone like that really fucking understands it, or Stephen Hawking, turn around and say, I've done all this, right? I've done all this, and it turns out, it's bollocks, it's just a theory. If Stephen Hawking said that, I'd go, oh, hang on, gravity might be just a theory. People that understand it are telling me. No, they're saying this is the theory that underpins it, and this is the result of the theory in practice. This is the practice. This is not the theory. This is the practice. You can see the build-up of powder on her lash. I wasn't going to make a big thing about her makeup, but you're right. It's quite thick makeup, isn't it? You know, that's an indoctrination by society that you should want to paint your face. Why would you paint your face with paints to make yourself look different? Why would you do that? Unless you're really indoctrinated by society. Because the reason you're indoctrinated by society is so that you buy products. Because lipstick is not necessary for academic success. Lipstick is not necessary for human interaction. It doesn't elevate you in any way. Lipstick is a product sold by a company that tests on animals. Yeah, so that they can get you to buy. Why do they get you to buy it? To convince you look better. What does looking better have to do with anything? It's even irrelevant because other cultures don't have the same lipstick. Men used to wear the makeup, women didn't. Now the women wear the makeup, the men don't. It's socially constructed. If something's socially constructed, like your perception of yourself and the desire to wear makeup, and I'm not saying it's wrong. My sister's a makeup artist, for Christ's sake. Lots of women wear makeup and they look very nice to me because I'm in the same social construct. So, like, that's the world. We're living in it. You're not rejecting it. You're painting it on your face. You're not questioning it. You're painting it on your face. I'm a vegan and I made my own t-shirt to prove it. You painted it on your face. So, there you go. Like, you know, and if you paint your face, if you're a lady out there or a man who paints their face, good on you, whatever. I'm not saying it's negative. I'm saying in her context, in this conversation, that's why context is so important, Luke. Isn't it? That's why it's so important, because it means something different. I could be being very rude to you, you painted your face. Or I could be very specific about an argument she's making about the way we see the world and behave, and throwing it back in her face. So there you go. There you go. That's a good point, well made there. We're making lots of good points, aren't we, here? You know, I'm not the first person to understand that science questions the world and it's how we understand the world. And I'm not the first debunker on the internet, the Simon Dan, to say, you know, what they're saying is bollocks. But clearly what she's saying is bollocks.
People try to tell you that it's a law. It's not a law. Gravity is a theory. And so that's something else, you know, that I share with my children. Because
the best theories we have make up our perceptions of the world, make up our ability to perceive the world, make up our framework of what we see the world. And if you're going to reject that and you're going to say, no, I don't know about that, without being able to tell me about theta equals A over P, if you're going to reject it at that level, you are failing your children, because your children are never going to be able to. When it comes to question the narrative, right, this is what annoys me about this. She's got another one about maths that's like, do we need to understand maths? When it comes to, your children can't understand that, so they can't question it. I can't understand it, I can't question it. But you're not giving your children the choice. I went to school, they gave me the option. They said, do you want to learn this? And I said, fuck off, I want to go and smoke behind the bike sheds. So if I wanted to go and do an A-level in physics, I could now tell you about this. It was a choice for me. Your children don't have the choice, Shelley. You're not even given the equipment to choose. So it goes against what you said earlier.
Science is very often, it's more about following the money trail. You have to see who is funding certain aspects of science. Oh, wait,
I totally agree that. Like, this is the other thing that's fucked up. Like, we're getting confused between different things, aren't we? Remember, I'm an anti-capitalist vegan. I know that science... It's a bit unfair to say science in general, because you've got some really specific bad companies that fund certain things and then promote it through maybe education systems or maybe advertising or whatever. Oh yeah, totally that. I mean, I just told you the stuff you got on your face was tested on animals.
Because unfortunately what has been happening is that the that the narrative for like the common narrative for that time period is what is going to be pushed forth when it comes through in a lot of science. Unfortunately, money talks in science nowadays. A lot of people aren't really in it for the love of.
That's way too vague and silly. You know, what do you mean? People aren't in it for the love. It's money talks in science. It's like a vagary, isn't it? It's a vagary, which can neither be confirmed nor denied, I suppose, can it? I mean, I'm sure there are some people who are in it for the money. You get your research grants. Do you remember we did, and I'm not dissing someone here, but we did gamer transfer theory in an early stream, which is just a theory. And what it is this woman, she did her dissertation on this thing that she invented called gamer transfer theory. Not invented, but she did like some, she's not there now. She did some, there should be a picture of her at least, because there's only one woman doing the fucking thing. In data gathering, you do questionnaires. They're not the most legitimate ways of gathering data, but she found through questionnaires that when you play a computer game for a long time, and I mean, like, I played like FIFA for 12 hours one day, and then I went to bed, and I could still see the FIFA. I could still see the ball moving. It's called she gave it a name, gamer transfer theory. It came up in her questionnaires in her that's not it. Gamer loyalty, because there's lots of things here, but there's only one gamer transfer phenomenon. And so it came up in her studies. She put a name on it, right? And then what I found funny was that that's where she stopped. Like, she did another study after it to prove the gamer transfer theory, to like, because then she's getting in the news, and now she's going around, and now she's written a book, and now it's gamer transfer theory is what I'm basing my career on. And so there is a financial like benefit to her for promoting this concept of gamer transfer phenomena and being the big cheese in the gamer transfer phenomena world. Because Angelica, that's it, Angelica Ortiz de Guattari, Nottingham Trent University, I thought, oh, this is a really interesting thing, maybe we get her on the stream to talk about it. And then when I saw the way that she had just used this one thing as her, like, you know, get me in the news, get me on the cover of the magazine, like, get me on the conference to do a talk. Like, that's now, she's making money off the fact she wrote a dissertation and discovered something in science. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not terrible. That's like a career for somebody. That's not terrible. You know, that's got her somewhere. Researcher, Centre for Science and Learning and Technology. But look, research interest, video game psychology, cyber psychology, game transfer phenomena, esports. Like, it's all about that one thing. She's devoted a whole career to that. And so, like, it is financially now, because we work in this world, don't we? We work in this world. Like, you know, you can now go and buy the book, and if you wanted to talk on your TV show, you can pay her, and she'll do you a, you know, you know, she'll turn up and do a talk at your conference. It's all for money. So, yeah, it's all tied in. That, unfortunately, is the system in academia now. If you want to make a life and a career out of, you know, learning things. I mean, the problem I have with her is she's not continuing to learn so much. She's sort of stopped at this one thing, which has become lucrative. She said, what, you turn gay? That's very... I don't know if she said that. I don't know if I said she said that. You turn gay. I don't know if she... Might be getting a bit confused there. Or maybe she did in a different episode. I don't know, Isabella there. Maybe I got my words confused. I don't think she said you turn gay, but maybe... anyway, this woman has done a good job in one way. She's brought gamer transfer theory to the fore. She's discovered it. I mean, I knew it was happening because I was seeing the visions behind my eyes, but she's discovered it. But I find it a little bit tacky that she's then, from 2015 to now, or 1999 to now, has spent her whole life just talking about this basically one thing and selling books and getting more research grants. But you get more research grants if you've been on the telly and you've done a book. So, you know, it all feeds into the same thing. It's a capitalist system. And so it does exist that people in the scientific world are maybe not in it for the love of science. I mean, another good example might be Graham Hancock. Graham Hancock obviously wrote these books, Magicians of the God. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Some people think his ideas are spurious rubbish. Some people think there might be a kernel of something interesting in there, and he's gone off on some funny directions. Other people think he's talking total bob on. He's got it right and everyone else has got it wrong. Change history. But bottom line, is he interested in changing people's minds for the good of humanity? Or did he discover a little niche where he could sell some books? Is he the same as Martin Leaker, or is Martin Leaker trying to be the same as him? Are they all looking for a niche to sell a book? Because if you're an author, you want to sell your books. So it's the same as YouTube videos. If my videos about this take off, I might make more videos like this. Or maybe I'll stick with my passion and do Mental Health Monday and Words on Stream every Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? Like, who knows? Maybe people aren't in it for the love. Maybe they're in it for the money. Well, you've got to be in the world, so you can't criticise them too heavily for that. That is the world. But I'm going to bin off Graham Hancock for a minute. We'll come back to him another day. She's homeschool, yeah. She's homeschool, she is. She's homeschool, and she teaches all sorts of stuff. So people not being in it for the love of the science is a funny thing to level at them, because also it's more financially lucrative to be correct in science terms, isn't it? There was one other thing I wanted to say about that, and what was it? About people not being in it for the love, but being in it for the money. Maybe it'll come back to me.
Researching, or they might start out with a love of researching, but when they see that certain things are going to get more funding, or if they believe certain things, they might get blacklisted.
I mean, this is, as a vegan, off the top of my head here quickly, as a vegan, I know there's a lot of money. Like in America, you've got meat packers. Remember smoking? There was a lot of money from the smoking industry going into studies to prove it was good for you. Remember? Like the meat packers, they're losing money with all these vegans proving that meat gives you cancer, proving that animal flesh, when burned, will give you cancer. Animal fats. It turns out eating an egg every day is bad for you. It'll give you cholesterol problems. These vegans coming along with their good ideas about, health and well-being, damaging to the economy. Right, let's do some studies. Let's science prove some studies that veganism is bad. Same with who's going to pay for the study? The meat people. And what's the study going to say? Meat's good protein. And like same with climate change. The petrol company are going to pay for a study, and what's it going to say? Oh, the world was getting warmer anyway. Like, come on, obviously, but that's why we've got systems in place to be able to verify who's funding what, and that's where you question the narrative, and that's why I question you and your narrative, because you're saying you can't believe in science, therefore you probably got to go with the Bible. I mean, what? I need to know what your curriculum really is, because if it's the Bible, they're worse than the science people for taking money behind closed doors and doing bad things. They were doing, priests were raping children. What's going on?
Or they might lose tenure. They're going to very quickly lose the love that they once had just for finding out the truth about how our world works, and they might unfortunately sell themselves out and just start doing the things that they need to do in order to get by. And this is something else that I share with my children. But
that's really unfair, isn't it? Because let's say, for example, teaching your children that the earth is flat, yeah? And I wanted to get onto this, so I'm going to quickly get onto this. I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. I appreciate that maybe we have some people, I'm not pointing any fingers, some people in chat that might I want my history here, so what do I want here? It was liked videos, wasn't it? I like my own videos. Look, horse goes into a house, this one.
Here's a
So I'm not going to go at anyone who believes anything here. I'm just questioning the narrative, yeah? This is Carl Sagan explaining how the Greeks knew the earth was round. This is where we get our knowledge from early on. So the Greeks thought the earth was round, and this is what they thought. So here we go.
Ancient Egypt.
Ancient Egypt.
Two sticks or obelisks. One up here in Alexandria and one down here in Syene. Now, if at a certain moment each stick casts no shadow at all, that's perfectly easy to understand, provided the earth is flat.
Right, you get that? Yeah. If at any moment both sticks cast no, these are obelisks that were built and they cast shadows. If they cast no shadow, that makes sense because the earth is flat.
If the shadow at Syene is at a certain length, And the shadow at Alexandria is the same length?
If the shadows are the same, then it makes sense because the Earth is flat. Wherever the sun is, a flat plane underneath it, the shadows should be the same length.
That also makes sense on a flat Earth. But how could it be, Eratosthenes asked,
Aristosthenes asked this. Aristosthenes, I think he said.
that at the same instant there was no shadow at Syene and a very substantial shadow at Alexandria?
So now we've got this problem with the shadows being
The only
different.
answer was that the surface of the Earth is curved.
So that's how they discovered that the Earth was curved, and therefore they decided on, you know, not a cylinder but a ball. You know, they got the ideas together. That's the ancient Greeks, right? I'm not questioning whether you believe the Earth is flat or not. You can believe what you want in chat. I'm just saying that's what the ancient Greeks said, right? Now she's saying that the people in science, they fucking make it up for money. They change things for money. They had their you know, finding out the truths and all this stuff. So what I'm saying is, how does she know what those ancient Greeks thought and why they thought it? Because that's not modern science, that isn't. It's taken as factual, you know, nowadays we verify it with different mechanisms, but, you know, all the way back then, you know, we're talking about ideas like gravity might have been discovered by Isaac Newton, but they weren't floating off the earth back in Greek times. They had ideas.
They once had just for finding out the truth about how our world works, and they might unfortunately sell themselves out and just start doing the things that they need to do in order to get by.
So was Aristosthenes or whatever a sellout? Was he doing whatever he needed to get by? Was Aristotle and was Archimedes a sellout, doing whatever they needed to do to get by? Was Isaac Newton selling out by discovering gravity or creating the first theories of? No, I don't think so. I think you're confused. And in fact, some science discoveries were ridiculed and ignored at the time and didn't provide the people who discovered them with great benefit and boon. Like when people first discovered germs, they say, "Oh, I can't even see germs. Can't even see them." You're talking shit, mate. So, like, science ideas changed. Like the plague doctors used to wear a posy of flowers in a nose cone because they thought that it was the bad smell that was making them sick. But it turned out that by putting a nose cone on with a posy of flowers, it stopped some of the germs getting in your nose. So it actually worked. They were confused, but we figured things out and changed them. So I don't even believe what she said is right. I don't think you can level at the ancient Greeks that they were faking it for money.
And this is something else that I share with my children. So,
but she wouldn't know because she doesn't understand the world, because she didn't have that strong and well-rounded education. She obviously doesn't, because she said herself she doesn't like the public school system. She doesn't believe in the education. So I would guess, it's only a guess, it's only my opinion and a guess, but she's not had a good education. That's what she thinks, isn't it? So I'm saying she's not had a good education. I have. I understand the ancient Greeks and the context. She doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Think Scott, what Squirrel Sniper's saying here. You only eat meat. A moving sun would do that too over a plane. Like Carl saying that was their decisions back then, and it makes sense to me. So I'm going to go with that. I'm not doing an episode on the Earth shape now. We can do it another time. But the point was I was using it as an example for her saying you can't believe what they tell you. And she's saying because they've got ulterior motives. But the people that were telling us are the ancient Greeks. Not Carl Sagan of today, or not even today. That's not today, is it? That's not today. But not Carl Sagan. He didn't invent that.
At the moment, each stick casts...
Like, what he's showing you is something that was around since ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. So, like, what she's saying is that they're making up for money, but the Greeks weren't. Carl Sagan might be, but the Greeks weren't. So it's not fair for her to say that. She's wrong. So I'm not saying that she... I'm not saying anything about the shape of the Earth. I'm not debating that. I'm saying that example of what we accept as science and what she says is made up and fake is a proof that she's wrong. It's evidence that she's wrong. The ancient Greeks didn't do that for money in our today's day and age system. Those ideas have been around for longer than our economic system. So she's wrong. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying let's discuss the shape of the earth. I'm saying she's wrong about the reasons they're saying it. How do I know I got a good education? Ask me a question. It should hopefully show through when we discuss topics and I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but understanding how precipitation forms is different from understanding the language of Shakespeare. But I know a bit about both. Like most people of my peer group who went to a school, I think we've all got a pretty good education. You might not have good GCSEs or A-levels or whatever, but you've got the opportunity to learn the basics at a school that give you the good basics. That's the whole point of our system. So I'd say we all have a good education. Compared to, like, you know, you grow up in a fucking tribe in the jungle, you've got a better education than that. A good education is wide-ranging. Agree. Again, agree, which is why I feel that I have one. Because I don't know if there's anything in the world that you can bring up that I could say completely baffles me. No idea. No context. Context, again, like might not know the exact thing you're talking about, but might be able to bring in other ideas that help me understand it. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? So I feel that I have. I might be wrong, you know, I might be ignorant. When ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. That's a Shakespeare quote. So I do have a good education. And the reason I know that quote is because they forced me to write it in lines in detention. And that's another reason I know I had a good education.
Comes to homeschooling, I typically do teach my children the traditional viewpoint that is being taught in schools. But I don't teach only the traditional viewpoint.
So how the fuck are you doing that, right? This is a problem to me now. She's saying she doesn't just teach the traditional viewpoint, but she also, just checking my relaxing music still on, but she also teaches the opposite or atypical viewpoint. So that would seem weird because in my school system, and it did take a while, you know, it took me from the ages of like 5 years old to like 15 years old to get the full basics done, didn't it? We didn't have time for all of that. We did look at some other alternative viewpoints on different subjects, but she's teaching two things at the same time in her school, and she's got 4 kids to teach. She's superwoman.
I teach that, I tell them this is what...
I'm being really judgy on this lady. I fucking am. I really am, yeah. I am. She's the one I judge the most because judge lest not ye be judged, it says in the Bible, but, you know, I think she's failing her children, and I think she's an example of something that's a danger, not just to herself, but to society and her children. So this is one of the most... like, this to me is like child neglect, and it makes me angry in my soul. And I worry for not just her children, but for the other people she's influencing as an online influencer. We only discovered her through all this truther, you know, through all this Martin Leaker. We only discovered her through that. You'll notice I'm not as mean for Martin Leaker. His son went to school. I'm not, you know, as mean about Jade because she's not telling you to take your children out of school. So when it comes to children and their welfare, it can be UNICEF and giving money to charity because we're bombing Afghanistan, or it can be the Western world where they're taking their children out of school because they think that it fails them, and instead are failing them on a much wider level, a much more, you know, wide-ranging set of levels. And on top of that, she's promoting it on YouTube. Do you know what? I'll be really truthful and honest as well. This is content for me. I hope it gets viewed with some pinch of salt. I hope people find it a little bit funny, even though I'm being like rah, rah, ranty. I don't want to be a ranty bastard on the internet. I don't want to be a judgy. It makes me look bad, doesn't it? People are like, oh, I don't want to hear him judging people. Who does he think he is? But at the same time, I think I'm doing some sort of service. It's content. You know, it's something we, not with planning, but with happy coincidence have fallen into doing. So, you know, it might not be forever, and I will take your point on board. I am being very judgmental, and let's be fair, you know, who am I to judge? Judge lest not ye be judged. I mean, who am I to judge? But I've told you all my thoughts about why I'm doing it. I think it falls on the side of public service and it's content.
Most children are...
I can't help it as well. She says these things and I think them and I just say them.
Learning, or this is what most people believe, and this is what I believe, and I tell them why. And I explain both sides of the issue to them. Or sometimes there's more than just two sides of the issue. But I think it's important.
Problematic is that in school, the way that you would learn these different sides to an issue might be to go away in a work group and, present one side of a debate, and then to write me an essay on the other side of the debate when you've had the debate. Maybe being in a school of people with four different, perspectives on the world from four different families. In my school we had in all schools you've got people come from all different walks of life, so if you have a conversation about anything, someone's going to put their hand up and say, oh no, my dad says this, and oh, I think this, and you get these different ideas. But at home with just your mom, you don't.
Important that children, even if
email us, I'll be glad of it. In time, and there is a lot of time, we'll get deeper into some of these ideas that you allude to in chat sometimes. I've got a bit of a plan for our upcoming content. Tonight is Genshin Impact. This week I'm going to be playing some Genshin Impact. And I'm trying to get Steve on to talk psychology. I'm trying to branch out. I want to Steve psychoanalyzing the idea that you would do this to your children would make a good episode for me. So, get someone else to judge her. But I've got some plans, but yeah, I take absolutely on board what you're saying in chat here, and there is time for that in the future, yes. I do want to address all these conspiracy theories and Tartarias and, behind the scenes ideas. Without our channel, it does hinder our channel sometimes that YouTube thinks we're some sort of conspiracy, nonsense. So it does harm our channel sometimes, but yeah, I'll say yeah.
You know that what they're being told is probably not 100% the truth. You don't want your children to grow up.
Just get Urban Jungle. Your paper.
Adverts. So now she was telling us about people profiting from science, and you can't trust them because they're profiting from it. But you realise her YouTube channel is only a small but profitable venture for her. Like, it's bringing in some passive income for her. So she's put 2 adverts on this video. So you realise that she falls into the same mechanism that she criticised.
About in a world in which they are going to look ignorant, because
they're going to look ignorant because you never let them go to school. And the reason they're going to look ignorant, whether they are ignorant or not, the reason they're going to look ignorant is because what everyone else believes, they're not going to even know what it is. What everyone else says, oh, but we all did that in class 3. They're not even going to remember that lesson, didn't do it. So things that the whole peer group take for granted, they're going to actually be ignorant of. Whether it's factual science or not, they're ignorant of it. You teach them all sides of the coin, do you? They're ignorant of some stuff I would warrant. It's my judgment.
They are not going to know.
I can hear a bird outside then. It sounds like someone's murdering a seagull.
What other people are referring to when it comes to certain things, maybe in history or certain aspects of science. So you do want to present these things to your children so that they at least know. And then if you also give them the other point of view.
All right, she's aware of that. She's telling them, she's saying, make sure your kids aren't ignorant of what other people know.
Which they will not get in school. Your children can be equipped to make their own decision. Because, again, it's so important that you
Can they, though? Can a child make their own decision about complex things in the world? The sort of things that you've got conspiracy theories about. Like, can a child really, and should they? Like, some children still believe in Father fucking Christmas. You'd think you got the bogies out of your nose before you started the episode, You'd think you'd have blown the bogies out of your nose before you started the Anyway, a child is not equipped to deal with those things. Sometimes we even accept that we give children facile explanations for things, and then as they get older and understand nuance more, we enlighten them to that nuance, and we say, well, it turns out what we told you was a simple way to explain. In the electricity episode was a brilliant example of that. The first explanation of electricity we had in our episode was that these molecules sort of get pushed around like a chain. But then when we looked into it deeper, it's not even how it really works. But it's a good example that kids can get in their brain and can understand and get us thinking in a certain framework so that then we can understand the deeper nuances and say, okay, remember when we said about that chain? It's not really like that. Here are the deeper nuances. But now that you understand all this other stuff around the subject, with that framework holding it together, we can now adapt this framework, because the stuff that you learn around the subject will inform your new understanding of this earlier hypothesis. So you would have loved this lady as a teacher. I mean, maybe you would, but I don't know, you know, if it was your mum, imagine all, because I love my mom, but sometimes she makes me cross. Sometimes I make her cross. And then imagine if you had to deal with that and you're supposed to be doing your lessons and you're in the room with your sister who's fucking annoying you for this or other reason and you're at home and not in a school environment. There's loads of reasons why it might not be conducive to a good education and why the relationship between a parent and a child maybe shouldn't be interfered with by combining the relationship between a parent and a teacher and a child, and maybe that difference is clear to children and it helps. You know, maybe you didn't like some teachers for some reasons and you held a grudge or they held a grudge or whatever, and you didn't have to live with that for the rest of your life because you left it at school, but your mum is always your mum. So there's a lot of complex psychological reasons why having your mom as a teacher might not be the best thing. In fact, some teachers who are really good teachers, they don't have their kids in their same class or school sometimes. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's not a big deal to be in a class with your mum sometimes, but sometimes it makes a big difference. So each their own in that aspect. Maybe it's individuals.
Teach your children to only accept what they've been told, because that is what caused this problem to begin with.
Well, that's school again. School doesn't teach you to accept only what you've been told. It gives you the framework to understand the world and critically analyse it. That's the whole point.
We want to have thinking children,
yeah,
not
duh.
Children who are just going to parrot what we say.
Oh, again, parrot, conveyor belt, a moa massaman, a marmy samant. That's not what our school is. It might be different in America, but if that's what your school is in America, you're fucked. That's stupid. It used to be. Dickens went to school like that. Shakespeare went to school like that. And even in the 1800s, 1940s, 1970s, there was a lot more of that. Nowadays, no. Throwing it away. In the bin with that shit. The educators understand that parrot fashion doesn't help. They don't want children who are just parrot fashioning things. They want thinking children, yes. I will also concede that we have a ranking system, that our government have failed us. The Tory government have failed us. And we've got things like ranking systems where they would rather their children all get an A in this subject than actually be able to think. Because at the end of the day, I'm just paid for my A, so shut up and give me an A. You get that as well. So... if your mum had taught you at home and had been like the charge of the light brigade, lots of shouting, we'd have had lots of shouting. We had enough shouting at my house just to get me to school, for Christ's sake. And I would at least listen to the teachers when I was getting told off at school. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, man.
Or what their teacher says. So for us, for homeschooling curriculum, I don't use textbooks. I don't like them. I never have. I just think they're very boring. They're very dry.
Stupid, isn't it? Because whilst textbooks might be boring and dry, they also collate all the information in an organised fashion in a section of broken down passages so that you can teach it. It's a teaching tool. It's not just you always have to have the textbooks, but following along with the lesson plan in the textbooks shows you what you've done, shows you what you've got to teach, and it shows you a method of teaching it. So anyone who's done any schooling would agree. Could you imagine doing all of your school without textbooks? Your mom doesn't like them, so you can't have them. But they helped me when I was doing my revision. But they helped me when I was looking into what we're about to study for the next lesson. But they helped me when I had to go over it again at home. But they helped me when the teacher was talking on the blackboard and I couldn't see it that far because I didn't have glasses at the time and I looked in the textbook instead. Whatever reason, they're boring and they're dry and you can't have them because your mom's a fucking idiot.
They don't give in-depth information.
They don't give in-depth information. Textbooks.
About certain areas, especially if your kids really like a certain topic.
You can't get specialist textbooks if your kids really like a topic. We're talking about a general education, and she's critiquing a general education for not being specific enough in certain topics without realising that that's the stages of education, and that as you get older, you specialise and your textbooks get more complicated, but you wouldn't know that if you don't read them.
You're not going to find a lot of information on anything. Parents
outsource everything these days and they don't teach kids anything themselves. I would agree to a certain level drink water. I think that's depending on parents. Obviously, my parents divorced when I was a kid, so I had different pressures on us. But my dad definitely did education at home. He taught me to shoot a gun, for Christ's sake. It wasn't taught at school. All sorts of things that I know in my life because my parents taught me. Absolutely. Maybe some parents didn't teach and just assume that school would do everything. Okay, I'll agree with that. But that's a question of parenting and not a question of schooling, isn't it? So...
in a textbook. So what we typically do are unit studies, which I'll leave links to unit studies.
I think you'd probably do unit studies because I think there might be a legal obligation to prove that you're qualifying your children to a certain standard. So maybe these units, I don't know what unit studies are, but my guess is there's some sort of, you know, state or federal system of guaranteeing that the child is being educated to a certain level. Can they complete unit study 3? Or it might be just a simple breakdown curriculum, teaching kids to read ABC, you know, unit studies. I don't know, but she's going to do them. So my guess is that she's being forced to through the system to prove her academic standard, because otherwise why would she do them? Because she doesn't believe in all that shit.
In the description box so that I don't have to describe here what they are.
She's not going to describe them for us.
But we use unit studies, and my kids will watch a lot of videos.
Kids will watch a lot of videos. So that's good, because you do have different learning styles. There's audio, visual, kinesthetic, and videos will help with the visual and auditory learning styles, won't they? But do you remember at school you watched some videos? Oh, is the teacher off? Yes, get the video out. Yes. You know, it wasn't considered to be the most difficult lesson for you, was it? 'Cause you're just watching a fucking video. So your children watch a lot of videos. Good on you, top teacher.
And we will use a lot of living books, and I do talk
living books
about living books and videos, so I will leave
videos
a link in the description box for those also. The nice thing about unit studies is that a lot of the activities...
Why are you talking about unit studies when you just told me you wouldn't describe them?
...are very open-ended. So there's no like yes or no concrete answers. You just...
There's a lot of that in education, isn't it? Sometimes there aren't yes or no concrete answers, and they talk about it and discuss it. So...
have an idea.
Like in English, there were very few yes or no concrete answers. With sentence construction, yes, but I'm talking about English literature. You know, there were very few. I remember being told by a teacher, there are no wrong answers to these questions. Just write what you feel.
Idea of something to look into or something to learn about, and then they can then formulate their own opinion, or you can work on these things together.
Isn't it strange as well that she's happy for them to formulate their own opinion, but only if it contravenes the opinion of general society? What if their kids came to her and said, look mom, I actually think the earth is round, and that, like, you know, Jesus didn't tell us to do all this shit, and I just want to be normal like everyone else? Like, would she accept that as them formulating their own opinion, or would she say, hang on, you're not getting a proper education here, I've obviously done my job wrong, sit down?
And so that's what I like about unit studies, is that there's more flexibility in what your children are learning about. When it comes to videos, my kids know that I will often like pause a video in the middle of it, and I'll say, okay, now that's what they typically tell you, but this is what I believe. And then I will tell them why. So that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? So she's going to teach them something and she doesn't believe in it. So is her ability as a teacher going to be impaired by her non-belief in it? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, my history teacher taught me about fascism, and he wasn't a fascist. So maybe, maybe not. But it worries me that there's going to be, you know, when she was talking specifically about science, her prior judgment, it's not the word, I want to use a word like sneering, her condescension of science might affect the way she teaches it. You know, if you've got a teacher that's not passionate about the thing they're teaching, maybe they're not the right person to teach you. And then to then say, oh, and also it's bollocks. Like, what are you going to feel like in a lesson? Could you imagine doing lessons where you went to school or didn't, and your lesson is, here's what I want you to say in the exam so that we can pass the unit study, but it's bollocks. Here's what they really should be telling you. I mean, how would you go away from that and internalise that? And what would it do to your young psyche as a child? What would you learn to trust and believe, and how would you feel you could speak out? Here's another question. What if you've got social problems? What if you need to speak to a counsellor? Like, what if you have problems at home? Like, you can't talk to anyone at school about it because school is home. That's a different question. Again, if you have...
Like, I don't like the way my mom's teaching me. I don't like my homeschool lessons. Well, shut up, you're having them.
Reasons to back up what you're saying, your kids will understand why you believe the way. Interesting
stuff in chat, which I'm not going to be able to take all of, you know, and talk extensively on, but I see ya. Peter and Jane series, but like, you know, young minds and good books, yeah. And I also, you know, I see you conversating about the globe and the curvature and things. So maybe we have to do an episode on that at some point. And meeting the Queen must have been really interesting, and lots of different views on the world here, so interesting to have them all in chat. Yeah,
way that you believe. I also use living books, and living books are just basically books that are written by authors who really have a love of the subject. So textbooks do not fall in the living books category.
What? Books that are written by authors who have a love of the subject, so textbooks don't count. Although people that wrote textbooks may well have had a love of the subject. Like, you don't know. Like, why are you assuming that someone who writes a textbook doesn't have a love? I know a nurse on the internet who's a doctor, but he was a nurse trainer. Dr. John Campbell. And you might see him as a bit of a truther these days. I'll tell you what was amazing about Dr. John. So he was on the internet before COVID, and he was just doing, like, you know, your standard medical videos. I'm going to have to go quite far back in his here now, because COVID was a few years now, wasn't it? Talking vaccines. But we'll go way back before COVID. And he was talking on the internet about, I'm trying to go way back before COVID. Look here. Okay, so, you know, medical stuff, renal, opening the airway, respiratory system, nurse training. That was his vocation. He's a qualified doctor who worked as a nurse trainer. So he's an educator in the medical field. So when COVID kicked off, the fact that he's already got a website, you know, it's a website, sorry, a YouTube channel talking about medical things, it's no surprise that John started talking about COVID and giving daily updates. And at first you would have said, oh, he's one of these fucking, you know, he's in with it. He's in with the, he's, you know, he's telling people that COVID exists, so he's fake news. And, you know, some people that don't believe in COVID would have said, oh, he's a shill. He's a shill. But over the years, because it's been a couple of years now with COVID, over the years, his opinions, based on medical science, based on being a scientific analyst, scientifically analyst, he's basically coming around to some different ideas that might not agree with the government line and the currently ascribed mechanisms and ideas. So some people might now call him, I don't know what you'd call him. Like, you know, he's saying that we shouldn't necessarily give lots of vaccines out to children, COVID vaccines out to children at this stage in the pandemic. He said that lockdowns were damaging for mental health and other reasons, and we had to look at the balance. You know, I was well on the side of lockdown for COVID, stopping it going around, but he talked about other things that opened my eyes to some ideas. So people nowadays would say he's probably like, you know, he's not a shill. He's the other side. There he is on the Great Britain News being interviewed by them. So, because he was talking about these new treatments for depression, now that depression has been, you know, he's prepared to say, no, hang on, the science has changed. We've got different data. Let's go with the data and let's see what's different. No, let's not get political. Let's do it based on this science data. So, some of the things he said, like I said, like there's one, Wuhan were working on monkeypox. 2 months ago, he's done a video about proving that Wuhan were working. Now, that might sound like a conspiracy theory. It's not, it's medical science. So he's gone all the way from shill to, he was talking about, he was the first person I saw on the internet talking about vaccine complications, both if they're injected incorrectly and also issues with spike proteins. So, you know, there's a lot there. There's a lot there. Now he's not seen as a shill. He's the opposite side of the spectrum. He's the opposite side of the spectrum. He's a doctor, and he's someone that I respect their opinions. He wrote the reason I showed you him is because he wrote a textbook. He wrote 2 textbooks that are used generally across the board to teach nursing. Those other things I said, the esophagus, the respiratory, you know, he's written a textbook to help teach nursing. So he's passionate about it to the point where he was doing it on the internet before it was profitable, where he was selling those textbooks in medical, you know, medical training settings, not for financial benefit because it didn't make him a lot of money, but because he was so passionate, he wanted to write the textbook with the most modern ideas in it. So, like, for her to say textbooks are written by people who don't give a shit, I'm judgmental, but come on, that's rubbish.
To use living books, and
what's a living book? What's a living book? Interactive read-along adventures aimed at children 3 to 9. It was developed for CD-ROM and published on Mac and Windows. So she's questioned the narrative, and she's going along with something that was produced on computers for money by Bill Gates and his mates. Produced for Microsoft Windows and Mac by Broderbund Broderbund are a software company, an American maker of video games and educational software. They're a commercial enterprise. So you're now going to put your education in the hands. I mean, there might be good living books, there might be good educational tools, but you're now putting your education in the hands of this company that makes video games in San Francisco. So, well done. That's a good resource. Thanks for switching me on to it.
Books that are written by authors who really have a love of the subject.
So no, we just saw there were people who wanted to make money in the e-commerce world, but
textbooks do not fall in the living books category, but some living books would be like historical fiction or biographies, autobiographies, non-fiction books.
Autobiographies, people writing their own book about their own life. I thought that history was written by the victors and that was a problem. Now it's okay,
otherwise known as trade books. That's what we use also, but you're not going to find a lot of books that really follow along the line of thinking that most of us truthers have, although there are more nowadays. So
what she's trying to say there is you're not going to be able to buy a lot of books that talk a load of bullshit, because not only will publishing houses not publish them, they won't sell very well. So nowadays you can get more books written by people like Martin Leaker because they can publish them themselves or get India Wilson to pay for it and take the money. So you can now find a few more books, but she's saying there aren't that many resources to teach your kids. There aren't that many educational resources for the truther movement, homeschooler movement. No. And it's not a surprise, is it? It's not a surprise.
Excited about that. But that's just another learning opportunity for you.
Yeah, historical fiction, you write it and choose your facts to fit the story. It's about stories, isn't it? Yeah.
For you and for your children, because again, when you're reading these books, you can stop and you can say, okay, this is what most people think, but I think that this is also a really good possibility.
So that's all the way along their education. Imagine this, all the way through your education, you've got your mom who's the teacher stopping and saying, yeah, but it's bollocks. Yeah, they think that, it's rubbish though. Like, what respect would you have for the things she's teaching you? What reason would you have to try and remember them? How would it colour your perception of the things you're being taught? And why would you feel, like, how would you feel about her constantly filling your head with bullshit? Because she's telling you it's bullshit. Either way, you either think the thing she says is bullshit and she's filling your head with rubbish, or the thing she's telling you that they tell you is rubbish and she's still filling your head with it. It's not right, is it? Why are you telling me all this rubbish that I then have to say, oh, right, that's what they think and it's rubbish? Why not just tell me the truth, Mom? Like, seems weird, doesn't it? It's like really confusing. Anyone can write a book. It's about getting them published in the mainstream and getting it out there. Well, these days you've got vanity publishing, so you know Martin Leake can just pay for his own publishing. And the reason that publishers choose books to publish are based on basically 2 or 3 factors. One is financial remuneration. That's the number one reason. They think they're going to sell them and get money back. Educational books might have a patron, or you might get government money to produce certain books that they're going to use in a government setting. So you might be able to get Boris Johnson and his mates have probably got the commissions for that, haven't they, from government money? So there's that, but really it's financial reward, isn't it? And then the second thing would be they won't, I won't say that there's not that many other reasons to publish a book, like other than they think they're going to sell them. But the second reason that they won't, and maybe this is a reason that you might see as an anti-reason, but you definitely won't see a book where there's any slander or libel, because then the company that print it are liable for that, and they're going to come into court and have problems. So you won't see any books that contain any like really serious slander or libel. And I think misinformation and mistruths and things like that, I don't know if there's any legal aspects there, but it might also, and this is a sort of third, fourth reason, is like taint their reputation as a publisher. So if you're known for publishing good books and then you produce one that says a load of rubbish, people might say, oh, I'm not reading any more of their books, they speak a load of shit. So there's that as well. They might be protecting their reputation. So for those reasons, they're for what I think are the reasons people might publish or not publish books. But there you go, you're indie publishing, this is a new world now. Indie publishing, anyone can do it. So it's a different world now. So for good or bad, that is a different world now. And me personally, I'm an indie producer myself. I made an indie film. I've made albums that you can find on Bandcamp. I want to know now if you still can. Hang on. Bandcamp Big Valley. There we are, yeah. So I've made albums on Bandcamp. So I'm an indie producer. I circumvent the traditional publishing. We're doing it now on stream. So although YouTube is a bit of a big publisher, aren't they, these days? So yeah, agree. Like, it's okay to self-publish, but it's got to be accepted that it doesn't. It also comes with there are people out there that vanity publish or have that opens up another whole world of, is it legitimate stuff just because it's in a book? Does putting it in a book make it more legitimate? And because it's published, they have con jobs, don't they? Like India Wilson and Martin Nico, I'll pay for the publishing, but I want to take 50% of all the profits, and you don't know exactly how much it costs to publish, and is this good quality paper? And there might be con jobs out there now because anyone can bang a book together. So it becomes a much more murky world. So maybe what we look at, because certainly in history, again, this is my broad education coming through, I know that there was a time where the ability to write things down was only the educated had that ability, and only the reasonably well off or religiously literate, learning Latin would have been, and writing parchments would have been the domain of monks at one point. Access to materials, parchments, paper, the production of paper, the creating of the printing press, all these things that had to happen in order for us to be able to do all this stuff. So there was a time when the production of literature, books, textbooks, whatever, was only available to, it was what I'm trying to say is it cost a bit of money, it cost a bit of resource. So you wouldn't just be throwing them around, churning them out like Martin Leake can. I write 1 million words on an ebook and I can get it printed tomorrow, done. Everyone can vomit out a book. No, it was a scarce resource to be able to do this. So they limited it to the most valuable information at first, didn't they? And at first that was the religious texts. But science soon took up as being one of the most valuable things that they want to record. History. So that's what started getting recorded. Nowadays anyone can write a text on your phone and you just write lol, fucking this and that. The power of the written word, the authority or the value, perceived value, because you knew how much it cost to produce a book or a scroll or whatever, that's changed over time. So saying that books aren't valid because textbooks aren't valid is actually wrong again, isn't it? Because they're even more valid, because you would have really wanted to make sure there was good information in those textbooks, because it was going to cost you loads of money to print them, and people were going to either buy them or not based on that, and all sorts of stuff. So
and you share what you think with your children also, and again, explain why you think that. So there are some really great examples in fiction that you can use with your children when you're homeschooling them, depending on their age level. But read alouds are huge in our house. I will read books. Usually nowadays it's usually chapter books. It was picture books when my children were younger, but now we're just reading novels aloud. All
of them together as a group, just reading novels aloud. Age 14 to 4, all in the same room, 4 children reading novels aloud. Is that a wide and balanced education? For my English lessons, we did do some reading in class, yes. We did do some reading in class. We did a lot of understanding as well.
And we can use those as, kind of bridges to see how something could possibly happen and what it would look like, or what it looks like in the book. So like 1984 is one. That's not particularly one I would do a read aloud of, because there is some more mature content in that.
Well, that's a mistake, because certain aspects of the mature content are what you want to read aloud and talk about. That's the whole point. We did 1984. We didn't do it at school, but it was on my reading list. Like they asked me to read it, so I read it.
Which means that you really need to be careful that you're using it with more mature children. But 1984 is a great way for you to show your children that there are some parallels between what is happening in the world today and what is happening in this supposedly fiction book. No,
you're confused there. A good way to show the parallels would be 1984 was written in 1947, so it talked about things like You'd have to understand communism first, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just jump into 1984 and say, right, this is explaining the world of today, because it categorically is not. Like, you can't say that Orwell was a visionary and could see into the future. We don't have the Ministry of Truth taking away newspapers and editing them and then putting them back in edited form. We don't actually have newspapers. Like, some of the ideas might, you can apply it to this and it won't ring true to that. But we've got a totally different world. Like, Orwell would not understand the world of today. He would not be able to make comment on it. But other authors and other contributors, I mean, Cohen probably, Stanley Cohen probably can. And I think that Adam Curtis is a really good documentarian. Adam Curtis's documentaries, like Hypernormalization, that's a 2016 documentary and will allow you to gain far more insight into the world of today than 1984, despite 1984's really poignant and memorable themes, subject matter, characters, iconography. Despite that, Big Brother isn't watching you in the way 1984 suggested. Our video screens and our cameras are not connected to an office with a bank of screens where someone is watching you to monitor your behavior. Big Brother, now you are watching Big Brother. You feed Big Brother your data through your mobile system. You don't have a video screen on the wall. You've got one in your hand. It's like, it's contextually different. So whilst it was a wonderful, wonderful text that taught me a lot more about myself than the rest of the world, really, she's trying to sound clever here. Like, she's read a clever book and she's introduced her kids to a clever idea. And look, she's like, busting the conspiracy theory because she knows 1984. That's yesterday's Onions. That's in the that book was published years and years and years and years and years ago. And Brave New World, yeah. Excellent book. You were asked to read it in school. They taught you about the world through it, but you had to move on from it to be able to understand the world.
There is also Brave New World is another one.
There she goes.
Not one I would do as a read aloud, but one that you could have one of your mature children read.
And why are these books that they have to read and you don't get to watch the films? Because she said videos were great earlier, but these are books that you should read. Why are these books and not the films? I'll tell you why 1984 is a book and not a film for a literature lesson, is because Newspeak wasn't just something that, and has she understood this? Has she taught this? Newspeak wasn't just something that Orwell came up with as a concept for his book, but he actually, like, when you're a good author, when you're a good author, that's tiny. Like, give me a big picture. When you're a good author, you do kind of background stuff before you do the writing. I'm sure that Uncontrolled Historia knows what I'm talking about here. You might write things that never appear in the book. It might be a characterization, it might be a backstory, it might be some religious context, or it might be some social context, and you want to write it so that you've written it down so that you know what it is and you know it exactly, you know it, but it doesn't appear in the book necessarily. So I can't find a good look. The no pictures are getting me what I want here. Newspeak dictionary. It was in the back of the book. There was a dictionary of Newspeak. So Orwell at Dicksheet, like, he come up with this. It was like a secondary story that went along with 1984, which is that he'd come up with this idea that over the course of social, what Big Brother and the Party, what INGSOC is an example of it, English socialism. So you have to understand socialism, otherwise you can't understand this. But what the English socialism, INGSOC, were doing, the leading party, was reducing the amount of language that was available to people. They were doing all sorts of social manipulation, but by reducing the amount of language that was available to people, you reduce the amount of things that they can think, because you think in language. So if you don't teach language, or if you reduce, so instead of things being good and bad, there's two different sides. That's a Hegelian dichotomy, good and bad, right? But now there's not good and bad. Now there's good, double plus good, ungood. And there's not super and awesome and amazing. There's double plus good, good plus good, double plus good, ungood. Double plus ungood. So you don't have all these thoughts and ideas. You can't express yourself properly. You're limited. So this dictionary of Newspeak, all of these words weren't used. I don't think all of the words were used in 1984 even. I think, and this isn't a full dictionary of it. There was more in the back. There was more in the back of the book. But I think Orwell used some words in the literature that he wrote, but some of the ideas, the concepts of doing this to a society, he had to think through more deeply before he could write the book, because otherwise he wouldn't have written the book properly, because the people would have said things that didn't fit with Newspeak. So even every character had to speak in this language or absence of language. Let's go a few of these. Artsem, artificial insemination, usually it would be a shortening or a is it not conjugation? I'm trying. There's a word for it when you cut a word down like that. Anyway, black-white, believing that black is white, knowing that black is white, and forgetting anything of the contrary. It's important that a lot of these words were about thought processes, because just describing black-white with a single word opens up. You could have a whole school lesson on knowing that black is white and forgetting anything of the contrary, and how and why and what it means to be able to do it. And it's all put together in one word. And it's like an hour's discussion. Crime think. That's thought crime, isn't it? Crime think. You think something bad, so you're bad. You think, have you ever thought about stabbing someone? Think about stabbing someone now. You can't help doing it because I'm describing it to you, so you might be thinking it. That's a thought crime. You've got to go to prison now. You thought bad things. Are paedophiles who don't fuck children, I can't even saying this is going to get us taken off into the air. Are paedophiles who don't touch children, who just think about it and never say that they think about it, they're vile people who should go in prison, yeah? Or is it the ones that touch the children should go in prison, and the ones that think about it but don't do it are the ones that are not bad because they didn't do it? Or is the thought itself the crime? How are you going to monitor the thought crime? In our world, in the real world that we live in, you can't monitor thought crime, and it's actually come up as a bit of an issue, because now you've got hate crime. Now you've got crimes that are based on people's motivations, and in America and in the UK and in all sorts of places, you have murder, capital one, manslaughter. The crime is that someone died and you stabbed them. But if you stabbed them because you didn't like the colour of their skin, it's now a worse crime than if you stabbed them because you just think some people deserve a stabbing today. Like, it's a worse crime to do a hate crime, but that's a thought crime. That's something you thought in your head, and you could tell me that was what you thought, and I could believe it, but you might be lying. You might actually not care about the colour of someone's skin. You might have stabbed them because you wanted to do a good stabbing, but you might have said it was about the colour of their skin, and now I believe you've done a thought crime. And do you know what I mean? These are conversations, aren't they? The Eurythmics sex crime was written for the film. Yeah, absolutely right. Sex crime. So what they did was they criminalised thoughts. Now, you can't have conversations and discussions and understand the world without these thoughts. And the fact that I described some horrible things then, and that you thought them, didn't make you a bad person. It meant that you were able to, as a nuanced human being, understand and think through ideas. And where does that get us? That's question the narrative. So thought crime prevents you from questioning the narrative, because the thought police will vaporise you. Now, if you're arrested by the thought police for being a paedophile, if you're dragged out of your house for being a paedophile by the thought police, all of your neighbours know that you're a thought police paedophile. You're a fucking pedo. But they can't prove that you thought it. So in the world of 1984, you're punished for your thoughts, and no one can prove it. But everyone assumes it. Because you're being punished for your thoughts, it means you thought it. So if you saw your neighbour being dragged out of the house by the police because they're a paedophile, should you assume they were innocent and guilty? If they'd touched a child, they should go to prison. If they didn't, they shouldn't. In our world, we actually go on your actions more than your thoughts, don't we? And that's where I talk a lot about judging people's characters by their actions, because you can think a lot of weird shit. But if you're prepared to stand up for the vulnerable in society, and you're prepared to protect the innocent, and you're not going to fucking touch children, then by my reckoning, by my judgment of your behaviour, you've behaved well. Even if in your head you thought, fuck society, fuck the children. Like, whereas somebody else who in their head thinks, I'm a good religious person, I'm a good priest, but I've touched the odd kid, but I'm a good priest. Like, they're a bad person to me because the behaviour that they did, not because the thoughts in their head that you can't prove unless I'm a good priest. So, thought crime. There's an interesting concept. Day order is the order of the day. You need to have one because you can't go about your daily business on your own. You have an order to your day. You have an ascribed system of things you should do in what order. And don't deviate. That's the day order. It stops you from thinking. Doublethink is the ability to have two completely contradictory beliefs in your mind. We're not going to do too much more of this because otherwise I'm getting really waylaid. But you can see how my general education has helped me to understand this book in a far deeper way than she could ever. I think she has not understood that properly. I don't know if she's done what I just did with her children. Even if it helps them to question the narrative, I don't know. Maybe reading it aloud in class was enough. I don't know if she understands all this in the deep way, because I had to go on and read other books. I had to actually read another book about communism, because they actually have the thought police in communism. You have the Stasi. The Stasi come at night. They have it. Look, ungood, bad. They have it. So, it's making me feel emotional, because this is one of the first books that made me cry. But, I cried twice at 1984. I cried once when he was in the garden with, what's her name now? Her name's not important, really. Once when he was in the garden, you know, where he had that moment of beauty. And once at the end where he was broken at the end. I mean, I don't want to, no spoilers, but, you know, he's a fucking 30 or 40-year-old book, so. Anyway, these important concepts, was there something else I was going to say about them before I went back? Oh yeah, I wanted to just quickly say one about doublethink, which is, you know, I did mention veganism today, and I'm not a vegan channel, but I talk about veganism on the channel with the hope that it sometimes, you know, maybe might make some people think and question their own narratives, because two contradictory beliefs in the same mind. I love animals. There's one belief. I'm going to kill them and eat them. There's another belief. It's good for me to kill them and believe. The belief is it's good, it's right. It should be done. Two completely different beliefs for me. And I held those two beliefs for a very long time until I actually had my own dog. Had to take her to be, you know, had to see her go through the end. And spent some more time in the company of vegans who didn't beat me over the head with it, but, you know, showed me a different way to think and eat. And eventually I was able to understand that I held two completely contradictory beliefs in my own mind. Doublethink. Yeah. We've got different opinions, but you find me agreeable because of my personality rather than internal. I have to work on that as well, Isabella, to be honest. I can be a right dickhead. And I have started this episode by being really moody and like agitated because I was in a bad mood. And I even said, I'm in a bad mood, so I'm going to give it to her because I think that she's doing a bad thing by her children. I'm going to judge them. You know, I can be a dickhead as well, yeah. I have to work on it. I have to try and be personable on the internet because otherwise everyone's going to fucking hate me. But the truth is that I would rather have a channel where we could all talk together than a channel where, like, all the people that agree with me are here and saying, fuck you over there. You know, I didn't want that. You know, I don't want that. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to beat you over the head about being hypocritical because we are all hypocritical in ways, but I think in the long run, if we could all try and eat more of a vegan diet for whatever reason, but primarily the fact that the animals don't want to be killed and eaten. Like, you know, you don't want to go to your slaughter death, do you? You probably don't. Out of all choices that you can be offered, like, you probably don't want to go to your death in the slaughterhouse, do you? Like, these are my videos that I watched. I watched some K-pop shorts the other day. They just came up and I just watched them. It wasn't my fault. I want to find this one with the horse. Where's the horse? Maybe it was on the shorts. There's a cat and a vacuum. See, I do watch all sorts of fucking stuff on the internet, don't I? Where's the shorts? Where's the shorts? There was one with an animal and a horse and it come in the house. It's weird that it's not. It was on my list earlier. We literally looked at it on the list earlier, didn't we? And I was like, I want to watch this later. I even said it. Horse comes into a house. These are great big dogs. I was looking at them yesterday. There's all sorts of stuff to bring to the internet. Let's just look for horse comes into house. Let's just quickly, I'm going to get back to the homeschool, so I've got to finish the episode and look, here it is, See the horse?
She was just like, I can open this door all by myself. I never planned on having a horse in my house. We had to get another door handle. She would just let herself in and walk in. Now she speaks on the door and she decides she wants to come in. She started putting her head in the window and she would just hang with me. Our quiet times are my favorite times, and those are the times where I just have those intimate.
So there you go. Guy's got a horse in his house. Now, don't tell me animals don't have their own emotions and feelings and drives and brains, you know? Don't tell me they don't. Horse, cow, pig. Which one are we going to murder? Which one are we going to take to the slaughter? Which one? Is that horse going to be comfortable going to the slaughter and watching other horses get murdered in front of it? Is it going to enjoy the process and think, well, it's all right, circle of life? Or should it have its own natural life, unimpeded by our desires and drives? You know, there's some questions. They're different questions. I'm not doing an episode on that now. We're going to really try and drive this home now and finish these last 3 minutes of her thing, because I want to finish up our stream, because I'm being really good to you. I care. I do. I care. I didn't want to just completely overload it with Genshin Impact this week. I wanted to make sure I was here with you. Didn't I? Wanted to do words on stream, and it didn't work out words on stream, and I'm still here, and I'm going to be playing Genshin Impact in an hour. So everyone else in the world, Genshin Impact started at 5 in the morning this morning, and everyone else that loves it has been playing it all day. And I said to myself, no, save my treat, the thing, you know, the game. It's work, it is work, but it's a game. Save that thing for later, and do this, be with the people. You know, try and give some money to charity. We failed on that, but I like creating this group that it's a different group from the Genshin Impact viewers. So, like, I'm here with you. I hope you appreciate it, because we're getting on for time now, and Genshin Impact is calling. So, I've left my Christmas presents till after dinner, so I can listen to you and have a chat to you.
451, and that one I also used as silent reading. I don't think there was anything. I only ever read it once. I don't recall if there was anything questionable that I wouldn't want to read it aloud. But I didn't read that aloud. That we also used as silent reading.
Why is silent reading different from aloud? Why is it more questionable if you say it out loud?
iPod series, though, we did do that as a read aloud, and that was actually fantastic, because when I read that to my children, if you watch my Question the Narrative series, you know that I have been addressing the resets quite a bit, and I don't really, to be quite honest with you, I haven't really talked too much with my children about the resets. They hear me talking about, like, my husband, about things that I found, or we might drive past something in the car and I might mention it. Like, my kids know what mud flood windows are and everything. But when we were reading the tripods, that was a great way for me to bring in what a reset is and what a reset might look like, and how, if we look out in the world today, there is much evidence of what we could call a reset, or more than one reset, in the world today. And that was all kind of just brought in by this series.
I'll have to join you in the Febs one time. You know, I think Martin tends to broadcast at the same time as me at the moment, so I can't generally tend to join you, but I should join you in chat one time, shouldn't I? I don't want to get banned, and I don't want to say anything rude to Martin or about Martin or make him feel uncomfortable, so I won't be in there being like that. But I might, you know, I've got two options. I could sneak in as one of my other YouTube channels, sneak in undercover, or I could just go in outright and say hello to everyone, Ganji Kid channel, and just hope it goes well. But not tonight, because I'm doing Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact!
That we've been doing, that I was reading with my children.
But this
so that's another way.
This is like another. I can't go on too long now. So every time she says something, it brings up loads of things in my brain. But one thing I wonder is, you know, at school you would do a lesson, like maybe you'd have an hour and a half for English. So you do half an hour of reading this book, and then an hour of, or like 40 minutes of talking about it, and then you'd start writing something, like, you know, you'd be given the question on the text on the board, you'd write it in your homework book, and then you'd say, like, right, we've had this discussion, you've taken your notes, you've read the thing, I want to see an essay, 500 words on my desk on Thursday. The bell would ring, and you'd go off to do art, or you'd go off to do something else. And in a day, you would do that one thing that she was describing. Oh, we read a book together, and we got some learning options out of it, you know, got to learn, turn it into a learning experience. You'd do that like 5 times over in 5 different subjects. and you go home with your homework diary full, and then at home you'd start doing this shit with your mom. Like, so I'm a bit confused. Is she saying, like, you know, we read this book and that was a good learning experience and that was me, I'm a good teacher? Or does she also do that 5 times over in a day? And then where do you do your homework?
You know, that you can
my name was brought up in Feb comments saying that I was against him. Oh, that's a shame. I mean, I could speak for myself if he ever wanted to question me. That'd be okay. I don't mind people saying things about me, because, like, fuck what people say, frankly. Like, the evidence of how I behave is clear and apparent. I'm on the internet doing it. I mean, I'm not going to encourage people to come around my house, but I don't behave any differently off camera. I'll tell you that. I couldn't keep up a mask like this for hours and hours and hours. You've seen me being angry earlier. You've seen me being raw and real. So, you know, I'm just myself. And I haven't been against him as such. The thing I am against is the manipulation of an audience for money when it's a spurious means. Like, if you were doing good in the world, I wouldn't mind so much. But I think confusing people, giving them funny ideas, and the result is that you get YouTube views and sell a book. Like, that's the same as Jordan Peterson. It's the same as Graham Hancock. Maybe there are different spectrums of bad, but, you know, there's lots of people out in the world that are doing these things that I don't really approve of. It's not my world to cast approval, but, you know, I've got my ethical concerns. Let's say that. I've got my ethical concerns. And we've also got a disagreement about the truth of history. We'll say that. I'll assume he's being at least true in some of his opinions, and we'll say that. But we're completely on the same page when it comes to anti-authoritarianism and freedoms, I think. You know, I would fight for your right to not have a vaccine, even though I think you should have one. Like, you know, we're completely together on certain aspects of social justice and change. Like, so there are things that we have compassionate grounds to be friends about. So, you know, it's a shame if someone said that, you know, I'm mean about him, and it's a shame if I'm perceived that way, because I do try and qualify all of my critiques of Martin by saying I think he's actually a reasonably nice guy he comes across as, and I'm sure we'd get on, and I'd like to have him on the show. So, you know, there is that. This woman, not so much. I don't feel that same warmth to this woman. I worry a lot more about her motivations and the dangerous things she's doing. So I would say it's much more fair for me to be brought up in her comments saying I'm against her, because I am kind of against her, both ideologically and kind of personally, because I think the thing she's doing directly is personal. She's doing it to her children, whereas, you know, and I'm trying to defend their rights, their human right to a fair education. Whereas with Martin, he's doing it through the internet to a wider group, like marketing. So, like, I abhor Martin in the same way as I abhor Nestle or, you know, Nike or McDonald's. Like, for those reasons, for those marketing reasons, for those ethical decisions. But, like, this woman's doing it personally to her children, so it's a bit different.
Bring these topics into your homeschool, but I think that you don't want to teach only the truther topics to your children, because again, with most of the truther topics,
if you taught only truther topics to your children, they wouldn't get a fair and balanced education, because some truther topics are, like, specifically grounded in conspiracy and are anti-establishmentarianisms or anti-establishment, aren't they? That's what they don't exist. You don't have a truther narrative if you don't have a narrative to question, because otherwise it's just the fucking truth. And you're not truthering the truth, are you? It's just the reality. We don't go around saying I'm a reality head, like, you know, debunked, unreality debunked, like, you know, pixies debunked. Like, we just go around, you know, fairies debunked. Like, we just accept the truth. But she's saying that, like, you know, if you only taught truther topics, you couldn't. Because then you couldn't, like, how would you teach art? There's no truther movement in art, is there? Is there? Maybe there is. Maybe you just teach the truther art and you ignore, like, Banksy. I don't know.
We don't even know 100% that we are correct. So I think it's more important that...
Well, that's a bit of a brave thing to say, isn't it? You don't even know if you're correct, but you're that emboldened that you would reject the narrative, ascribed narrative of society at large. And that's not just they that teach us, it's also everyone else that goes along with it, society at large. And instead you would feed them what you call not indoctrination, but, you know, question and conjecture, and you're not certain of it. You're not sure of it. So that's very brave to do that.
Children know that there are no questions that are off the table. They can ask questions about anything.
But you just can't answer them. They can ask questions about anything, but you will not be able to answer them. You will not be able to answer them.
Even their faith. I'm a believer, and if my children ask me questions about our faith, I am happy to answer them.
Questions, yes, but doubts, as we saw in the last episode, Jesus is well negative about doubts. If you're doing doubting, like they've even got a name for it, doubting Thomas, Jesus really is cross about that. Cross, not cross in the crucifix sense, but cross in the gets well tetchy about doubts.
Because I had a lot of questions growing up, and that is how I ultimately grew a stronger faith, is by asking all of those questions. And I went through that period for years. Like a lot of people who comment on my channel think that I never questioned it because they think, well, how could she think that? Well, that is exactly how I got to this point. It's because I was questioning things.
Who were you questioning it with, and how, and what were they telling you? And where did you seek your answers? Is a better set of questions, isn't it, than were you questioning it? But again, we're not following this deeper thread. We're just sort of saying, I questioned it anyway. Martin told a recent widow to shut the fuck up and get back to the ironing. He's a bit volatile. That is, I mean, I'm just taking what you said there. I'm assuming it's true. Bear in mind, I didn't see him do that, so I'm not going to like punish him for it necessarily. But that you should clip it and put it on the internet, because it's fucking awful to do that. There's sexism and like insensitivity is one thing, but sexism is something that I won't see stand.
And I spent years reading about it and researching it, and this is the conclusion that I came to.
I assume it's true. I assume it's true, but you realise that I'm not allowed to just say somebody in chat said this, so now I have it as my facts about you, Martin. Like, I'm not allowed to do that. I have to see the I'll look in the future, you know, like I say, clip it and snip it, clip it. What do they say? Yeah, snip it and clip it. They say, anyway, like I look for the evidence to back things up, and then I'll, you know, verify it in my free time if it can be verified. I'm not saying I don't believe you, but yeah, you understand me. Yeah, okay.
Now have a stronger faith than ever before, and I want my children to actually have that strong faith that. Hang on, you want your children to have the strong faith. Because before you said you wanted your children to have all the tools to make up their own minds and to question the world and to make up their own mind. But now you say you want them to have strong faith. So you have got a desire, I would argue you've got a desire you want them to be truthers. You want them to be questioning the narrative. You don't want them to turn around and say, listen, Mom, after 4 years of homeschool, I've decided I want to go to the normal school like everyone else. I want to just play basketball and American football and, do maths and... You know, I don't give a shit about Jesus and God, and I'd rather go to prom. So, like, fuck you, Mom. Like, you don't want that to happen. You want them to say, thank you very much for teaching me at home and making me a truther. I see through the veil, and I love Jesus. That's what you want. Their own, and that again I have not just passed along to them as tradition. And you know, if you think about it, that's really what our children are learning in schools, and most of the time in homeschool too. What we're teaching them are just more traditional topics, and we don't know that it's right, but we teach them anyway just because everyone else is doing it. And
again, that's a failing, isn't it? If you aren't investigating, I thought you were questioning the narrative.
What we're teaching them are just more traditional topics, and we don't know that it's right, but we teach them anyway just because everyone else is doing it. And yeah, unfortunately, I've kind of put that into my homeschool as well.
That's so weird for her to say that, to admit to these failings, because that's failing on both ends of the scale, isn't it? I'm saying she's failing as what you might call a more normal, traditional homeschooler. Even not going to school, teaching your children the wide and varied curriculum can be achieved, but to be a truther homeschooler is a different matter. So, but she's saying that as a truther homeschooler, she still taught them all the shit that she didn't even question. But she's a question the narrative person, and she didn't even question it. But my teacher, who taught me biology, questioned it. That's how they became a biologist. That's how they, they couldn't become a teacher without a degree, and you don't get a degree without a dissertation. So at some point they had to add to the wealth of knowledge already stored. They had to write their own ideas down, and it got verified by their peers. So they questioned biology. Like, they might have even done a science experiment or two. you question the topics. You like look at teaching and say, why are we teaching this to children? How is it helping them? And does it serve them today? Like that happens all the time in teacher training. That's the whole point. Like, you're not just still just doing what we did yesterday. You know, you wouldn't recognise school today. If you went in school today and sat down, you wouldn't recognise it compared to what you did when you were young, what I did when I was young. It's different. Oh, my tummy's really rumbling now. I need to get some dinner before I play Genshin Impact.
Because, again, I don't want my children to look like they were not educated, because most people, you know, they would look at what...
Gurgleson split the comment up because the algorithms didn't like it as one comment. If they're booting it, there's a lot of truth there. Maybe you could say that, or you could say that because it's a computer algorithm, it's not judging it on truth or fact, or, you know, it's a computer algorithm. So it's not, you know, it's not got political reasons unless it's been programmed to see things politically, maybe. But I think what they probably do is they just like certain words flag up. And what it's probably more likely about is advertising revenue, because that's the whole thing on YouTube. So anything that puts off, like, you don't want your Coca-Cola being advertised on abortions. So anything that's anywhere near those two, I've just said the word there, that's fucked it. We're no good for advertising revenue now. You know what I mean? So I think maybe it's a bit more of that than truthing in the YouTube algorithms. I think it just wants to keep this place as clean and sanitary for kids as possible. For kids, really, because that's who you sell to the most through your YouTube. So maybe that. I might be wrong. We can talk about the genders. I'm a big fan, though, of allowing people to just be themselves. And if they feel like they want to be called a woman and they've started life with a willy and they want to cut it off and tuck it in, I don't give a shit. You're a woman to me. If that's who you say you are, that's who you say you are. If that's who you are inside, I can't be in your brain and you can't be in mine. So I'll gladly give you the respect of taking your word for it. And because, like I said earlier, we're going to do an episode on it. I'm just taking your question here, though. We're going to do an episode on it. It's just that because when you add it all up, there's like 8 billion people, and like the amount of trans people, like, it's important to them, and it's important in our society that we make them safe and they have equal human rights as everyone else. But like in the big picture, how many athletic events are being taken over by muscle-bound trans women? Like very, very few. Like, it's not really a social problem in the same way as like homelessness is a problem. Like, transgenderism is not a social problem. Like, to the people who are dealing with the issues themselves and are having to go through the transitions, it's an issue to them, of course, and we should aid them in any comfort in their life as necessary. But like, in terms of a social issue, like what are your kids being taught in schools and what's happening on the streets, drugs, stabbings, shootings, rapes, like all of this, they're the social problems. And whether some people feel like they want to be transgender and need help for that is like, you know, you think of it on like a pie chart. It's like a sliver of a hair. Let me just see, you know, how many transgender. I don't need to do it. I don't need to type it in. We know it's like, and I'll tell you someone. I'll quickly verify this and reference this. ContraPoints. I would love to get ContraPoints on our show. I would love it. ContraPoints is someone that I admire. I admire them incredibly, both for their intellect and their bravery. She makes videos on YouTube that talk about social issues and is transgender. So I think that covers it. Our trap's gay. You know, if you want to find out about transgenderism for someone who's like, because I've got things I can say on the internet, but I was born with male genitalia and I feel like a man. So what I say doesn't really count compared to what ContraPoints has to say. Not in really, because like she's got like the lived experience to educate me. So I'll go on other people's ideas that come from that community more than I'll go on my own biases or what I think nature was, and, you know, forget what I think. It's kind of irrelevant, is my thought. So I like to learn from people that I feel have the life experience and the education, because I'm not sure, but I think she might have done a degree in like psychology or sociology or something like that, and I think she knows what she's talking about. It's very interesting stuff. Modern world. But again, like, you know, if people feel threatened by that, they don't have to worry, because, like, you know, we're not Like it's not that through this media there's a generation of kids all tucking it in and, you know, poking it out or whatever. Like, it's not that. It's not. When you look at the statistical evidence, it's probably the similar sort of number of people who are transgender as there were 50 years ago. Maybe they just feel more comfortable now and have got more social mechanisms to aid them. But it's not that there's like fucking loads more. Like, they're coming out of the woodwork now. It's not that, you know. But I don't know. A soggy science degree, yeah, maybe one of the humanities. Maybe one of the humanities. I like those subjects. I think they're good. I think if you go to a university level and, you know, read about them and study them, I'm just assuming it of ContraPoints because her content is of that ilk. But if you do that, then I've got respect for that, and it's interesting stuff to me. I'm all right with that. It doesn't, you know, it's not the same as getting a quantum physics degree in terms of who's the biggest boffin. But again, I'm not Albert Einstein. Sorry, I've got to get the joke wrong because I'm stupid. I'm not Alfred Einstein, am I? So
what I am researching,
I'm a human. I like talking about humans.
Off at it because they have accepted the mainstream narrative. So yeah, I think it's important. Don't just teach your children. This is my opinion. Don't just teach your children only truth or topics and not give them, you know, a balance or what the other opinion is. You do want your children to be well-rounded.
I think she's confused again. Like, I'll reiterate quickly because I think it's important. I think what you do is you teach your children the well-rounded, well-balanced education, and then as they grow and evolve, you, if you feel like it, introduce them to these more complex, nuanced ideas, but you don't shake their underpinning foundations at the core at day one by saying they think this and I think that, and they think this and I think that, and this is this and this is that. Like, I think you're confused there. I think you're confused. And you're delivering confusion.
All areas. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of
if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. She's got 375 of the fuckers. You can't truly be a Christian and not a truther. So thank you for Shelley. A lot of times your videos help you and not alone in your beliefs and convictions. Glad to see you back on YouTube. I always enjoy your videos. This school year will be my 3rd year of homeschooling. Thank you for speaking on being a truthful Christian homeschooler. I thought I was alone in my thinking. See, I think they're getting conflated, these two ideas. I think the idea of like this anti-evolution movement, you know, this evangelical Christian movement in America, I think she's getting support from them. But I don't think they realise that she really is not all that, because she doesn't believe in the same Bible stuff as they believe. She thinks that Jesus came back after like 1 year of being dead, and we've had thousands of years of fake history caused by the devil. She thinks Revelation is not a prophecy, but a description of things that have already happened. So, a bit confusing for everyone. Teach your children how to think, not what to think. But by teaching them what people already think and how they establish their thoughts, you teach them how to think. So it's a silly thing to say, teach them how to think, not what to think. It's like simplified, it's like a slogan, and it doesn't mean anything. Because how will you teach your children how to think? How will you give them critical thinking skills? I would argue that by illustrating other people who have demonstrated those critical thinking skills, by explaining how people develop their ideas about, you know, Isaac Newton learned gravity, or discovered it, the apple fell from the tree. That's an example of something a child can understand. And that teaches them what Isaac Newton thought, is that this thing came from up there and down there. And so now we have to have a theory, and now we're getting a bit deeper. So teaching how to think, not what to think, is about processes, about thinking. So teaching what people think, what to think, is important to start with. Like, you teach them language, you don't let them make up their own language. That's a good example, isn't it? You teach them language rather than allowing a child to invent their own language, because how to think and what to think are intertwined. And this one says, thanks so much. I've been in science in particular with your 8-year-old. I use the phrase about things being a theory a lot now, and I was wondering how to go about giving him the other sides as he gets older. So at least they're thinking as they get older, but telling it it's a theory, you know, without underpinning knowledge of what theories are, how they come to be, how they are, because theories, hypotheses, are then tested in science, aren't they? So it's not all just a theory, but, you know, explaining to an 8-year-old what a theory is and how it's tested might be a bit much, mightn't it? I mean, in simple terms, they'll get it, but in complex terms, they won't. You have on my site, Isabella Live 2, the stream I was on, got into an incident with the landlord, and the police come and arrest me on stream. That's awful, taking you to jail. That sounds bad. I don't like that sound of that. I don't want you to have to go through things like that in general. Sounds bad. So I'm sorry that you have to go through things like that. No one should have to deal with that sort of shit, really. Yeah. And today we've got other ideas for future episodes. We've got to have a look at transgenderism and what's his name. And to be honest, I don't want a debate show where I get people from both ends of the spectrum on. I'd rather just have the liberal left-wingers with me. But I'm open to, you know, all conversation points. And I would love to get ContraPoints on. She's a bit big for me, I think. I don't think she'd be interested in my little stream. I'm not even monetized yet, but, you know, when I can get to a point where I can offer her what she would consider a reasonable remuneration for her time, maybe she would. You know, that's the capitalist world. That's something I'm hopeful for, is that as we grow, nothing is beyond us, because people say, well, Joe Rogan got all these people on his podcast. Yeah, but he paid them, didn't he? They don't just do it for free, and I wouldn't expect that of people. So, you know, there's nobody out there, and I could get Gary Lineker on, or I could get chuffing, you know, Liz Truss on. Liz Truss would come on this show for a certain amount of money. At the moment, I don't look right. It's political for her. But even that, for a certain amount of money, she would come on this show. I don't have the money yet, but, you know, you never know. Can't we throw an apple back on the tree? No, but we can bury it and it can form a new tree. But that's a different lesson, and these are all different stories. And now it's officially nearly 8 o'clock in my world, so I'm going to have to get off, eat some food, and come back on the internet to play Genshin Impact, which I've been looking forward to for a lot, because it's the new expansion, thank you very much. So I will see you anon. Thank you, I really do appreciate you bearing with me today. We've got somewhere, I feel, and I'm sorry that I started out in a bad mood because of the quality of the internet service. And I do apologise for that, because that's not entertainment for me to be in a bad mood, but it's just humanity. It's just who I am. And I also really want to say thank you for, like, being here makes the things happen. So thank you for being here, and thank you for putting up with a lot of Genshin Impact videos all at once while I got that sorted, because now we're not backed up anymore. Now you'll see that regular routine of variation in the content continue. So no worries, no worries. Everything's good. You be good, my little pukas. Remember, if you can't be good, then homeschool, naughty, so you're in detention, and detention is at home. So I don't know how that's going to